What's up, diabolically delusional Dexterites, bingo players, and chainsaw enthusiasts of the world? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files Reacts, the show that we take off the bench once in a while. And after next week, we won't be gone for too long, because obviously next week is the final episode of Dexter Original Sin. But we won't be gone for too long because Yellow Jackets, the new season of that, is also on the horizon. So anyways, I am your host, Spencer, joined by Nick Henderson from the Dexter Daily and the 4-Player Podcast to talk about Dexter Original Sin, the new spin-off show that gives us Dexter's origin story. We'll be talking about episodes 8 and 9 tonight, and everything from the main series is fair game to talk about, so be aware of spoilers in this episode because we will not hold back. As always, our links to our socials and Patreon and everything are linked down below. If you join us on Patreon, then you get to watch these episodes live as we record them. You can participate in the chat and hang out with us. Also, all of Nick's links are down below for his Dexter Daily articles and the 4-Player Podcast, which I listen to regularly. So go check those out if you're into video games or if you just want to read some more stuff about Dexter. Without further ado, let's talk about our favorite serial killer.
Let's do it.
Man, so we are back. This was a tough 2 weeks, Nick, because all I wanted to do after watching episode 8 was talk about it. And then I literally just watched episode 9. I've had like a busy weekend. I just watched episode 9 for the first time before we...
You texted me and said you still got 20 minutes left in the episode, and I was like, oh shit!
It's about to get real!
And I've watched the episode twice. I've watched episode 9 twice now. And
Oh
I'm
my
probably
God.
gonna watch it again before I do my recap.
Yeah, I need to watch it again. I at least need to watch like the last like 30 minutes or so again because that was wild.
I don't know about you. That episode changed everything for me.
Yeah, I'm curious how it changed everything because I think for me it confirmed a lot of stuff, but I don't know if it changed everything. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But next week will be the finale. And I believe that Dexter Unwrapped will be joining us. This is the podcast that we talked about. It might have been the first episode that we did for Dexter Original Sin where we talked about them.
I think you may have mentioned it a couple weeks ago too.
Okay.
Like, I can't remember. I don't even remember how many of these we've done at this point.
I know. Time is a flat circle.
You start the show by saying that the show that we take off the bench every now and then. I was like, at this point, I feel like we've done like 5 episodes of it. And then you got Yellow Jackets, and then Resurrection, and then The Last of Us. Like how often are you really taking it off the bench?
I know
like
now.
A regular thing these days.
I know now. Now it's going to be a regular thing. But prior to Dexter Original Sin, the last time we took it off the bench was the last season of Yellow Jackets. So I need to like remove that from the intro because it's
this year in particular is a fucking crazy year.
Yes.
And like I keep thinking about all these shows. Yellow Jackets is just one of those ones I keep forgetting is coming. In fact, it starts the same day that Dexter ends. So that's exciting. But like I keep forgetting about like we got The Last of Us coming, and I keep forgetting that like I'm also a huge Daredevil fan, and Daredevil's coming back.
Yeah, when does Last of Us come out?
April.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow.
And then I mean honestly, The Last of Us might, because that's going to be 7 episodes for season 2. I think it might take us all the way through probably into June, which will butt right up against the start of Dexter Resurrection.
Oh my God. So we're going to have Fantasy Files Reacts like back to back.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of great TV this year.
Yeah. Because I'll be doing
great escapism.
Yeah. I'll be doing Yellow Jackets. And then I would assume that would butt right up to Last of Us.
The Last of Us.
So, Oh my God. Wow. It's
going to
be a busy year. It's going to be a busy year. But yeah, so I think Dexter Unwrapped, those 2 ladies are going to join us next week. They haven't joined us up to this point only because they haven't had a webcam.
Do you know if they figured that out yet?
So I was talking to them the other day, and one of the girls, I'm not sure which one it is that runs the Twitter account, but she was messaging me and said, "Are you guys recording for the ninth episode this weekend?" And I was like, "Yes, do you want to join us?" And she's like, "I'd love to, but I just don't have a webcam." And I'm like, "Look, I'm like,
I
go to Amazon, go to Walmart, buy a $15 webcam. You don't,
I
it
will
doesn't,
send you the link for the same webcam I've had for the last 10 years. It's a Logitech C920. I know it so well because it's the only one I've ever used. I've had to get like 2 or 3 of them at this point between work and home and everything.
yeah,
It's yeah, come on.
yeah,
It's USB. You plug it in, you're
right.
good to go. Boom.
Yeah,
Done. I
yeah,
mean, your internet's also kind of a big deal. So, but
yeah,
we can
yeah.
get this sorted in a week.
I know. I'm like, yeah, we can figure it out. And so she's like, okay, this week I will go get a webcam and we will join you for the finale. I was like, okay, sweet. So the plan is that they'll be here with us next week to talk about the finale, which is going to be amazing, I'm sure. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, general thoughts from this or from these two episodes. I think that for me, Molly Brown continues to be amazing. I think she's a great actress, and I'm really, really like truly enjoying her in the show.
Hmm.
But I think that she still is just not selling me on Deb,
Yeah.
just like as a character. And I
She's
was
doing
kind
she's not doing a Jennifer Carpenter impersonation. It's just that
right.
I think it just kind of comes down to that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think I just have to get used to the idea that she's just gonna kind of be her own character because at this point it kind of feels like she's like generic brunette sister number one. You know what I mean? Like not like she's not doing like a generic like acting role, but it feels like she could be any sister in any show. You know what
she's
I
one of
mean?
those characters where just kind of because of the nature of what this prequel is,
Yeah.
she's pigeonholed kind of into a point where she can't do like the role that she
Yeah.
can play in the drama surrounding her brother is fairly limited.
Right.
Um, so
I
you like a
I
lot of I think they found some really interesting ways to kind of incorporate her into it, but we know that she's never going to be in danger of like finding out her brother's
right.
secret or anything like that. So you just kind of have to remove that from the equation.
Right.
But what she's been given, she's doing a great job with. She's just
Yeah.
making the role her own. So
Right. Yeah, it's fun. And so then my other general thoughts, I have two notes back to back. I say Nick was right about Brian and about Harry not telling Dexter the truth. Damn, he called it. And then my next note is Nick might just be right about everything.
oh man, but the funny thing is when you wrote that, like you wrote that because
I,
you say it like we're
I
talking about like what's to come,
yeah,
and now I have completely taken a left turn and I am in a
oh,
completely different direction.
really?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I for sure think you're right about Harry tracking down Brian and
yes.
keeping that in the
I think all of
shadows.
that. Yeah, I definitely think all of that is still accurate. Most of what I'm talking about, like all the stuff that I'm kind of alluding to, like basically everything every theory I've had about
Like
Spencer and the
Tanya.
kidnapping
Oh,
and
okay.
Tanya and all stuff, I have pivoted on. It could
Ooh.
still happen. It could still happen that way, or it could not happen. I could be wrong about everything, but like
Yeah.
I was talking to John at Dexter Daily about this after episode 9, and the two of us started like just kind of like we were like firing on all cylinders, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, does this mean, and then we were just like, holy fucking shit. And then we came like we we have a crazy balls to the walls crazy theory about the finale, and it's I don't want to say it out loud. I'll talk a little bit about kind of what we're thinking
Sure.
at the end after we talk about episode 9.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where if I said it out loud, it's going to make me sound like a crazy person.
Okay.
um but I think these crazy bastards might be doing it. And if
Okay.
they don't, if they're not, then they've done a really good job of like keeping people guessing and on their toes, because we're right before the finale, and even though I feel like I have a pretty good feel for what they're gonna do, I still feel like anything could happen. And if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, that's exciting too, I guess, in its own way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
part of me hopes that I'm not figuring this out before they want me to figure it out.
Sure.
But
Do you think
anyways,
do you think your theory culminates in the final episode, or do you think it's like a longer game?
no, I think it culminates in the next episode. I
Okay.
think they were dropping some serious fucking
Okay.
subtle clues in episode 9, and I cannot stop thinking about them. So
Okay.
and this is kind of what I did on Dexter Daily, because John and I were talking, and it's like, one, I don't want to potentially, like, if I'm right, and that's a big if.
Yeah.
If we're right about this, it's one of those things where I don't necessarily want to say it out loud and risk
Spoiling
ruining
everybody.
what could be a really exciting moment.
Sure.
But at the same
Okay.
time, I don't see anybody really talking about it, and the clues feel pretty subtle. So it's
Okay.
like one of those things where I want to get it out there. So what I did was I wrote an article on Dexter Daily. I posted it today. And all I did was say, we have a theory, and it's crazy. And I'm not going to say what that theory is, but here's the evidence. And I laid it out like Exhibit A, B, C, D. It just like listed all the things from
Okay.
the entire season. Like, consider these things.
Interesting.
And I want to see if people come to
Can
the same conclusion. And I've
Sure.
already had a few people realize what we're suggesting and say, that's crazy. And
Oh, okay.
I'm like, you might be right. It might be nuts. It might be nuts. But I'm
Okay.
also sitting here, I'm like, but in my heart of hearts, I'm like, God, I feel like I think they're going for it.
Interesting.
And I will say this. It's very, think of it this way. It's very much like, the season 6 thing was not done very well. The twist in season 6 about Travis having his own dark passenger and, Professor Geller not being real was handled very poorly. But they were trying to use some subtle subterfuge there to throw the audience off, and the audience was picking it up very quickly. I think they're doing something similar in scope here, but they're doing a much better job of it.
You think a character isn't real?
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
When we get to that point, I'll just lay out what I laid out in the article and be like,
Okay. Yeah.
see what you come up with. And I'll just leave it at that. By the time this episode posts on YouTube and stuff, I would imagine that the finale will already aired, and if I'm right, it's already out there. If I'm wrong, who cares?
Interesting. So, okay. Cool.
But I'm just loving that the season is just keeping me like, fuck. I haven't felt this on my toes about a season of Dexter. I can't even remember when the last time.
Right. I feel the same way, dude. I feel the same way, especially 8 and 9. I texted you after watching episode 8, and I said, I think that might be my favorite episode of the season.
And then at the time, I wasn't necessarily at the same level as you are. But I think after watching it 2 more times after that, I was like, okay, maybe. I think this might. I still think episode 5, where he puts Harry on the table, is like maybe my favorite moment of the season so far.
Yeah,
just
for
because
sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But and then there's that whole episode has the thing where they all 3 of them go to the graveyard and they're separate, and then they had their little monologues at Doris's grave, which I thought was excellent. Like I think that episode is like peak Dexter.
Yeah.
But
then episode 9 happened.
Great. And episode 9 happened, and then it kind of made me think about episode 8 a lot more, and now I'm just like, if they're doing this, if they're doing the thing that I think they might be doing,
oh man,
it's fucking nuts.
That's
but
so
I also I hate myself for like building this up, because it's very possible that I'm wrong.
Sure.
So at this point, I'm just like, I can't wait for Friday, because at this point, not just because I'm excited to see the finale, but I'm excited to find out whether or not I'm right or wrong.
Yeah. Oh man.
And part of me's gonna be sad if I'm wrong, but like it's crazy enough that like I could be wrong.
Right. Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Do you like what with these 2 episodes? What are your like general thought? I know you want to talk about like theories and stuff, and you're trying to avoid that, but like just in like a general sense, do you think that these two episodes did a lot to like further the character of Dexter or further the character of Harry or like answer some questions that we had from the main series. Like, do you have any like top level thoughts about these two?
I think it did a lot to kind of provide like a broader context to Laura's demise in some really great
Yes.
ways. Especially like the fingernails thing where with Brian
That was
painting her
so
fingernails
good.
was like I did not see that coming and that was really
Hmm.
exciting. Um not like anything earth-shattering because a lot of like what these episodes deal with thematically and like character work wise is stuff that I feel like most people who have watched the show are already pretty familiar with. Um
Yeah.
but I think kind of like the overarching theme of this season, and this kind of ties into my theory, but not directly. So I'm just, but
Uh
like just generally
huh.
speaking, I feel like the point of the season is even though it's showing us a lot of stuff that we already knew about, and showing us some stuff that obviously we didn't know about. Like there's definitely a new story being told here.
Yeah.
Like kind of the underlying point is that like at this point in Dexter's life, he's very eager. He's very
Yeah.
much like he doesn't want to take things slowly. He doesn't. He's like Harry gave him the green light, and he's just like off to the races.
Yeah.
And he's getting good. He's getting more confident. He's even surprising Harry in a lot of ways. But I
Yeah.
think the season is ultimately building to at the end of the day, he probably should have listened to Harry a little bit more at
Mm.
this point in his life. Um,
Okay.
because I think a lot of the drama is going to stem from like I'll just say this because we all know how Dexter finales go. They're sometimes they're amazing and sometimes they're just kind of like
Yeah.
we don't yeah. I mean I have genuinely liked almost every episode of the show, every finale. But
Yeah.
like I think a prequel has a lot to prove just in
Yeah.
general. Like if you're going to make a prequel, you got to justify it. And I think they've done a really good job of justifying it.
Hmm.
But if the last episode of this season is like cut and dry Dexter of just like we'll talk about it. He follows Spencer, saves the boy, kills Spencer, you know, wraps
Yay.
everything up,
Yeah.
and Harry's going to have his moment with Brian most certainly, and that's going to
Yeah.
be interesting no matter how you cut it. But like if Dexter's story is wrapped up in a very neat little bow and it's just like run of the mill Dexter, it's going to be disappointing.
Right.
Which is another reason why I think they know this. I think the writers
Hmm.
know this, and they're like, we got to go big.
We got to do
We
something
got to do
different.
something. We got to do something nobody's going to see coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what they're doing. I think that's what they're doing.
Okay.
But there's also the possibility that he is literally going to do that. He's going to show up. He's going to take down Spencer, and we're going to find out why he did this. And then Dexter's going to be like, there are some really bad people in this world, and then the season's going to end. And even if it's good, it's going to be like a little. It's going to be like, did
Yeah.
you really need to make a whole season to like build up to that?
Interesting.
So I think they know that they've got to really shoot for the fences. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think both of these episodes have been kind of showing Dexter being like increasingly frustrated with Harry
Hmm.
constantly telling him to like pump the brakes
Yeah.
and him starting to like push back and be like, Dad, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Well, I mean, like Harry basically told him not to go after Spencer. He's like, "What are you doing? Of course that's crazy." And then Dexter does it anyway.
he
So,
told Dexter he's crazy for even having the theory in the first place. He
right,
told him to find his sister. And instead, Dexter's like takes the first chance he gets to like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure Deb's fine. And then he's like, I'm gonna go follow Spencer.
right.
And then he's seeing all the stuff go down at the cartel house when Harry is not there, and he's like connecting dots. And even like the moment when he realizes he thinks he's figured it all out, and he thinks Spencer is the person he's looking for. We think he's right, and he thinks he's right. But when you really stop to think about it, he
Yeah.
hasn't really proven anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the only the straw that broke the camel's back for Dexter, and albeit this is pretty damning evidence, was Spencer handing the bag with
Yeah.
the jersey to the junkie. And
Right.
that is like, and this is one of those things where like John and I were talking about this crazy theory, right? And we keep coming back to like that moment, and I was like, if there's like something that, if there's a piece of a moment in the show where I'm trying to like think of it in context of this theory,
Hmm.
and I can't figure it out if it breaks, then like I'll I'll walk away from this theory,
Yeah.
but it could still work. You know what I mean? So I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at
Because
this moment, and like Dexter is like, he sees this thing, this shady handoff going on.
hmm
He sees everything that goes down
and he
at the
spins a whole
cartel house,
theory from it.
and he spins a whole theory from it. But like, has he really followed the code to a T? Has he
That's
has
that
he guaranteed that what he's seeing with his own eyes is actually what's happening? That's the
that's
question I have, and I think that's the question the series is building towards. It's like, if Dexter is going to grow this season, it's going to be him realizing he has to follow the code exactly, or there are going to be some serious consequences.
interesting. Yeah, because and I think that's probably why he let him go was because he needed further evidence. And so he's making a big gamble.
I think he let him go. I think he let him go purely to follow him to Nikki,
Well, yeah, I think that's part of it, but I think
which is
that
also evidence in and of itself. If he
yeah,
takes him to Nikki, that's evidence.
but that only proves that Spencer kidnapped his kid and cut off his finger. That's the only thing that
Does
proves it.
that even prove that though? I see that this is like one of those.
Mm.
I'm sitting here thinking like, what does it actually prove? All it technically proves is that Spencer knows where Nikki is. That's all that it proves.
No, we've seen him pull off the mask. We've seen him pull off the
No,
mask.
I know. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Okay,
saying,
okay.
dude, I think they're planting seeds here for something truly fucking crazy.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, do you? Okay, I won't even
Yeah,
ask. I
yeah,
won't
yeah.
even
Let's
ask.
focus. I know, and I'm gonna feel like such an idiot once this is done and none of this actually happens. But like, I just love that it's making me think this way, man. I
Yeah,
just love that it's. I'm like sitting here, my gears are turning, and I'm just like, I want them to make bold moves. I want at the end of
yeah,
the day, I want this series to feel like it took some serious risks, and I think it
yeah,
has. But I think they can push it further.
yeah.
Um.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. What was I gonna say about? So okay, so let's say it. In my opinion, as far as everything that I know now, I think that if he were to follow Spencer back to Nikki, that would
Hmm.
prove, as far as Dexter is concerned, it would prove that Spencer has kidnapped Nikki and cut off his finger. But there is no way to prove that Spencer kidnapped, what was the other kid, Jimmy?
Jimmy Powell. Yeah.
Yeah, and killed him. And so as of right now, Dexter has no way of like really satisfying the code unless he follows Spencer back and there's some sort of damning evidence there
Right.
for
Which I
for
think is what
Jimmy's.
this is. Yeah, I think that's what it's, I guess just like kind of like the broadest part of my theory is that when we get right down to it, Dexter is going to realize that like he jumped to a lot of conclusions,
Hmm.
and not all of those conclusions were accurate.
Oh yeah,
And then it's
okay.
about damage control. Or
Right.
not even necessarily about damage control. It may not even damage control might not even be the term I'm looking for it. But like he's going to realize, fuck, Harry was right.
Hmm.
I was getting, because like he's had ever since Jimmy Powell was taken, he's had fucking blinders on.
Yeah,
He's like, this someone's killing a child,
right.
and that obviously bothers him for very obvious reasons that
Yeah,
he's not even aware of. But like,
right.
he does not like violence against children. Who
Right.
does? And he has, for the first time in his life, feels like he is in control, and he
Yeah.
you just look at like in episode 8, when he goes and tells Harry that like he dumped uh uh what's his face? Why am I forgetting his name? He dumped the body in the
Oh,
dumpster.
yeah.
Yeah. And like he tells
Levi
him all
Reed.
that. When he dumped Levi Reed's body in the dumpster and got rid of it, and he was driving. He was at the crime scene with a body in the truck and like all the stuff. And like when Dexter leaves, he just pulls out a pack of cigarettes and he's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like he's just like, "This
Yeah.
is getting out of control."
Yeah.
And Dexter obviously doesn't feel like it's getting out of control. He feels like he's in control of everything.
Right.
And I always flash forward to like season 7 where he's like talking to Deb, and Deb's like, it's out of your control, and he's like, everything is in my control.
Oh, I
Like,
love that scene. That's such a
yeah,
good. I love
it's
the
like,
way Michael everything is in my
yeah,
control. Like,
he is
oh man.
as a psychopath, he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
He has to be a psychopath, right? So like
Right.
he feels that like he knows better than Harry. He feels that he's doing everything right. He feels that I can finally do what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as that. I hope not, because I feel like if it is, that's going to be a little disappointing. It's going to be a little boring. But I think they have set up some interesting stuff to happen in the finale.
Yeah.
But I think both these episodes do a really good job of kind of like subtly hinting at that kind of stuff.
Right. Do you think that let's say Dexter deals with Captain Spencer, and I wonder if if Miami Metro will ever know. Like I wonder if
I don't
they'll
think
ever.
they will. I don't think that. Whatever happens, I don't think they're going to find out.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it'll
I think
be
they're going
written
to know
off
something
as like
happened.
a cartel, like cartel got him or something.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some, or he's just going to disappear. Maybe people are going to assume that he, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a sticking point for John. He's always been like, he constantly kind of goes back to like one of the earlier seasons of the show where they said something like no one else, Dokes was the only person in Miami Metro history to ever be like a killer or whatever. And I was like, I don't know if they actually said that verbatim. I can't remember it anyways. But obviously nobody ever talks about Spencer because he didn't exist when they were writing the original show.
Right.
At the end of the day, a lot can happen in 16 years between, so like,
yeah,
people may not be thinking about this situation 16 years later.
Yeah, that's
when
fair.
The Bay Arbor Butcher stuff is happening. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think when this is all wrapped up, I don't think Miami Metro is going to be
aware,
keen to exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Or why.
Yeah. Here's that scene.
Oh, yes.
I should have killed Trinity the first time I saw him. That's the mistake I made.
That's the mistake that you made.
Yes! And I will never, from this moment on, do you hear me? I will never, ever make that mistake again.
It is not in your control.
Everything is in my control.
So good.
That's such a good line. Where is
Oh
it?
my god.
In your control.
Everything is in my control.
I love it. I love it so much.
Such a good thing. That is he is a flawed character.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him a great character. He
Yeah.
is an incredibly flawed character. We think of him as like this perfect monster.
Yeah.
I mean, he describes himself as a perfect monster, but the beauty of it is he has his flaws. He has his issues, and he has not come to terms with that. And he doesn't technically come to terms with that for a very long time, if he ever does.
Right.
I guess not until after season 8. Like that's the first time he's like owned up to the fact that, okay, I am not as perfect as I thought I was, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the character interesting.
Yeah,
So I think they've got to do stuff here to contribute to that theme or that concept.
Yeah, I love that about the character, and then I also love what you were saying a couple weeks ago. I was telling you about a breakfast I had yesterday with a friend of mine where I was convincing her to watch Dexter. And I actually used what you said about Dexter a couple weeks ago, where you were saying the show has this way of taking this character who does not feel human emotions, that is not capable of understanding like most human connections and stuff like that, and finding these human moments within that, and
Yeah.
showing you human moments through that. And then that led me to, I was telling you about the wounded animal. You don't always have to kill a wounded animal. Sometimes you just take the thorn out of its paw. And that's one of those moments where it's like yeah, he's an extremely flawed character, that is very hard to root for sometimes. The show makes you root for him, and it convinces you to root for him. But it also, you can look at the character objectively and say, this is an extremely flawed character that's like psychopathic and has all of these issues. But somehow, the show still shows you these beautiful human moments through that.
Of which he has one really great moment in episode 9 that is like a really human moment. Like, they're doing such a good job in this prequel of really tapping back into that element of the character.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, I think the show maybe started to lose its way a little bit when they started like focusing less on the actual like humanity that he doesn't even realize he has,
Right.
but he
Yeah.
does. Um,
Is the human
like
moment in episode 9 where he draws the blood
yeah,
for
yeah,
for his friend?
for
Yeah.
Sanders, for
Yeah.
Officer Sanders.
That was a great
Um,
scene.
just such just such a human moment. He didn't hesitate. He was just like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course, I'll do this for you."
That's been
And if
such
you,
a great dynamic. Like
I love it, man.
I'm so glad they thought of that dynamic and like brought it into the show. Like that's
Yeah,
been
I think
amazing.
that is again, I say it all the time that I love this whole show, even when it's at its worst, even
Yeah.
when even though there are some seasons that are rough around the edges, right? But like, it's the show is always at its best when it's tapping into his humanity
Yeah.
and showing the audience that he is more human than he's
Willing
willing
to
to
admit
admit,
it. Yeah.
and then making these like broad like these like important message, like delivering these really important messages about what it means to be a human being
Yeah.
in society through the lens of someone who doesn't even consider themselves human.
Yeah.
like it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And this is one of those moments in episode 9 where he donates blood so that Sanders doesn't have to out himself essentially as gay to
Right.
the department, and
Do you
I think that's so great.
I think a season that is like full of these moments, and I'm curious, do you know what the community in general thinks of season 3? Like, are people high on that season, or?
Before, in the Clyde Phillips era, the first Clyde Phillips era, when he was
Yeah.
so seasons 1 through 4, 3 was widely considered to be the only people liked I think throw the term around. It was the only bad season. That
That's
wasn't a
so
bad season.
funny.
It's an amazing season actually, but it might be this like the it might it's just it's a really low key season after like season
Yeah.
1, season 2, some truly crazy shit goes down in both those seasons. It's like, and so much so that it's kind of like, how do you even follow that up? Like, how do you top that?
Because
So it's
I'm
a much more personal, like
yeah.
grounded story in
'Cause
season 3, and I love it.
I love it
Um,
so much. I'm so you and everybody else knows that I'm doing my main series rewatch, and now I'm in
mhm.
season 4. I'm well into season 4. But I have recently just finished season 3, and I was watching it, and I'm like, I think this might be like my favorite season. Like, I
I
think
will say this: I think Jimmy Smits Miguel Prado
so good.
is low key my favorite villain of the entire show. I think he is
It was amazing.
so unexpected.
I loved the idea of Dexter, and I wish there was a character in the series. I mean, I guess there is later with Hannah, but I wish there was a character in the series that could be his friend that goes and does kills with him sometimes. I'm like, I want that so bad, and season 3 was
they
like so
find ways to
close.
give us that.
Yeah.
They literally give us 3 different characters
Yeah.
that are fully aware of his secret, and I guess 4. I always forget about Zach, even though
Is Zach the kid?
the kid from season 8.
Yeah.
He knows Dexter's secret. He never actually
Goes
goes
on a kill.
like he dies before he even
Hmm.
gets to do anything of significance.
Yeah.
Oh god, I get kind of mad when I think about Zach.
I know. What a waste.
But like they found ways to give us that dynamic through
Yeah.
different lenses, and it's really, I think that is in and of itself really interesting.
Yeah.
Like they give us Lumen, they give us Miguel, they give us Hannah.
Yeah.
You know, they give us Harrison.
Yeah.
um,
But I think season 3 is I think it's like so good. Like when I finished it, especially when I got to the Ramon Prado scene
Yeah.
where he's in jail and he's like, you know, you don't always have to kill a wounded animal. Sometimes you just take the thorn out. I was like, this is beautiful. And like, it's so representative of this whole season. And there was so many human moments like that. And of course, like, Dexter is also like getting married and trying to figure things out with Rita. Like, I don't know, I don't really care. Like, he's like very like aloof when it comes to like the wedding and all that, like vows and everything. And so it's kind of like you're seeing a lot of human moments through that. And then when he finally marries her, he tells her, I forget what his vow is, but it's something really simple. It's like one thing.
He basically just says, "I promise to be the very best husband
I possibly
and father I possibly can," which is like, he's like, "I will do that.
Yeah.
I will do the best that I can."
Right.
You don't know what that means exactly,
Right. Yeah.
but it is not a lie.
And his inner monologue says it was like the only honest vow that I could come up with, or something like that. I'm like,
I think he
man,
just says it's like a truly 100% honest vow.
Right.
It's fucking great. It's beautiful. It's fucking season.
It was
is
so
beautiful.
good. I loved it. And so season 2, I'm kind of like low on season 2. I'm like,
Really?
yeah, I really
Season
don't.
2 is one of my favorites.
Interesting. I really don't like Lila at all. Just like,
Well, nobody likes Lila. I mean, Lila is just she's.
Insane.
I mean, I think Lila is great as a character because she's just totally repulsive.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
Like,
yeah.
her dynamic with Deb was just incredible. Just like, pardon my tits. Like,
oh my god, pardon my tits is so good. Yeah, so great. But
yeah.
Anyways, so going down a rabbit trail, but I just, all that to say, I loved season 3, and I think it was full of those very human moments. Anyways, let's talk about episode 8. Let's get into the details of episode 8, Business and Pleasure. We see Captain Spencer chopping up pills, and he puts it in the water, and the kid recognizes him. And this is interesting because watching this, I was like, maybe the kid was just saying like dad in his sleep or whatever. Like maybe like he didn't really, like he doesn't consciously know that it's his dad. Nope. In episode 9, he goes to put the food in the door and he says, "Dad, I know it's you. Like, talk to me." And he pulls off his mask and it's like, oh yeah, he knows it's his dad. Like,
yeah, he's definitely, he may have been out of it when he, in episode 8, when he was getting the jersey, but I think the implication is that he was just aware enough to kind of like hear his dad's voice or smell or you know, something triggered.
Yeah.
And he realized. I think it was because his dad's like, as he's trying to take off the jersey, he's like moaning or, and his dad's like shh, shushes him.
Right.
Which, like, little things like that can, you know, they can be dead giveaways. So I think that's kind of the implication there.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. I maybe it ties into your theory later on. We'll talk about it. But I thought that was such an interesting scene where he was like, "Dad," and like he just pulls off his hood, like, holy crap.
Yep.
I thought it was a funny scene when what's his name? Harry was like, "So tell me about this Geo guy."
I'm
And
so glad they finally acknowledged that the relationship with Geo is super inappropriate,
I
and the
know.
way, and that Harry was like, "Son of a bitch."
I know. He's like, I assumed he was in high school. I'm such a
I
fucking
literally,
idiot.
I literally did one of these. I was like, "Thank you."
Yes.
Finally, somebody acknowledges it, and Dexter is just so fucking oblivious
He's like,
to
oh, I
like
didn't really
the
think
age
anything of
difference.
it
The age difference thing is like not even on his radar for like
being weird.
inappropriateness. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's like, I kill people. Why the fuck do I care if it's a
Right.
7-year age
Yeah.
difference? You know what I mean? So
Oh my
I'm just
God.
really glad that whole exchange was great.
It was so good because he says, like, what'd you guys even do? He's like, oh, like, he's really protective of Deb. We went out for drinks. It was really fun. We had fun hot wiring a car. And Harry goes, what? And he says, what? It was a prank on one of her friends. He's like, you taught me how to do it. I
Yep.
thought that was, so we know that was part of his training that like, I wonder what that day was like. Like, Harry was like, hey, I need to teach you how to hotwire a car in case you ever
That
need to
is
get
one thing I'm
away.
surprised. That's one thing I am surprised we didn't get much of in this series is like showing
Yeah,
training mod. They showed more of that in the original series than they did in this prequel.
I know.
Like,
I was surprised as well. I assumed that we were going to get, like, Harry being like, okay, this is how you, like, don't leave a trace of yourself. Or this is how you, like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
why?
They
Like,
found other ways of communicating that though, like the whole thing with, and Dexter taking what he's learned and like modifying it even further, like to like when he like I love the whole thing. This goes back to episode 5 again. The whole thing where he's like, why is he like why am I naked
yeah,
on this tape? Like what is, and he's like, it's the
it
the
sticks
plastic
better.
wrap. It sticks better to bare skin, and it makes it harder for you to like break free. Like I thought that was brilliant,
Mhm.
and like it's just like you can see it in his like Harry's like, well, fuck, I didn't think of that's fucked up. I didn't think of that about that at all.
Why am I naked?
So yeah, I mean, like they're not showing us directly like a lot of these training sessions, which to be honest, like maybe not a lot. Maybe a lot of that stuff wouldn't have been super exciting to watch. I liked in the
Sure.
original series like the little training scenarios they did where he like had to like try and
Hunt
come up,
him.
like take him by surprise in the
Mhm.
middle of the night or whatever, and like that was kind of cool. But like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to watch Harry showing Dexter how to hotwire a car because like when you think about it, really, how interesting is that?
Sure.
Not that interesting.
It would have just been cool to get, like, something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, like a
I mean,
montage or something.
on my bingo card, I had a training montage. Thing
Oh,
on there,
what else is on your bingo card?
Oh,
Do you actually have a bingo card?
Yeah, I thought I showed you this.
No, share your screen.
Can I drop it? Where? Can I like? How did you?
Yeah, go
Hold on
at the very bottom. There's a present thing.
Hold on a second. You could talk for Vamp for a second. I have to find it.
Okay. Yeah, so they have a great chat, and I love the you taught me how to do it and like all this stuff, and Harry is just so exacerbated with the whole situation. And then Dexter says, like, I have this theory, and Harry's like, he's like, I have this crazy theory, and Harry's like, you're right, that is crazy. Like, I've known this man like my entire life, like we go way back, like there's no way that he is doing this. And then he tells him, and maybe this plays into your theory, but he tells Dexter, like, I think you are projecting your darkness onto other people. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was a great line because it really makes you think.
That was maybe the first moment I started to be like, I mean, that was where I started to kind of like shift my thinking about the purpose of the whole season and why it maybe started to like send me down a rabbit hole
Right.
where they're going in the finale. Because the whole theme of episode 8 is that like Harry is telling him you are projecting.
Right.
And he's like, no, maybe you're right. Maybe I am. And then at the end, he feels like he's vindicated. It's like, oh, see, I was right. And it's like,
no,
maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Just like, what if you're not right?
But like I don't know how you argue with the scenes where we see him with his mask off. But I'm sure that's part
We'll
I'm
talk
sure
about
that's
it.
part of your theory. I'm sure that's part of your theory.
Maybe we'll talk about that off. Like,
Yeah,
well, I
we
don't
could-
know.
Yeah,
I
for
don't know.
sure. But yeah, I do love this moment because it's like, you have to think about that, right? Like Dexter, as of right now, even with everything we've seen in episode 9, I personally do not believe Dexter has followed the code in order to get to that point.
Right.
And so I think that you are right in that Dexter has to learn some sort of lesson. Because when we see him in the main series, he is dead on. I have to follow the code word for word.
Right.
I have to.
And I think we're getting to the point, the reason why he is so dead set on not straying from the code.
Right. Did you?
Are you able to see my?
Did you
my
find
screen?
your bingo card? Oh, here it is. Cool.
Yeah. There it is.
Let's look at this.
So I made this at the very beginning, before the show even aired. In fact, I made this right before the Comic-Con panel.
Yeah. Can you zoom in?
Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
So the red ones are the ones that have happened.
Okay.
Those are the ones that
Young
I've
Miguel
gotten,
Prado.
which happened in episode 8.
Dexter says tonight's the night.
Tonight's the night for the first time. We have not seen Dr. Vogel yet, and I don't think that's going to happen at this point. So gonna chalk that up, I guess.
Sure.
I put San Diego Comic-Con panel teases New Blood season 2.
Wait, where?
That was technically I'm right here.
Okay, I see. Yep.
So Comic-Con panel teases New Blood season 2. This was obviously before Resurrection was announced, and New Blood season 2 had been greenlit.
Sure. Okay. That's fair.
So I filled this in because clearly Resurrection is what serves as New Blood season 2.
Exactly.
Retro 90s version of the original opening credits also was revealed at the Comic-Con panel. Original Daniel Licht score being included. Obviously. Brian Moser featured in flashbacks, more than flashbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
I love this so much.
This is one that has not transpired yet, but Camilla and Gene, her husband, both make an appearance on screen.
Okay. Do we see Gene in the main show?
Nope. She only ever mentions him, and they're doing the same thing here.
Yeah.
So it's just, I can't fill that in yet because Gene has yet to make an appearance, and I don't think he's going to at this point.
Okay.
The next one is Trinity's original Miami Kill is mentioned or featured, and it was.
Wait, what? When?
In I think it's the first episode where he's combing through for the first time. He's combing through the
what?
He's in the file room and he's scrolling through the articles. When he's trying to find out about Nurse Mary, I think is in the first episode, and it goes by in a flash, but it's the picture of the bathtub.
Okay.
The girl dead in the bathtub, and it's the photo they used in season 4. He looks at the same stuff when he's researching Trinity.
Right. Okay.
It was like a blink and you miss it kind of thing, but people were like, "Oh shit!"
Oh, that's awesome.
Harry's truck matches the one that he uses in New Blood, which is technically accurate. It's the blue one. The blue with it's the same pickup truck.
Do you think it is like the same exact truck?
I think it's close enough that
but I mean, like in the like in New Blood, do you think it's his dad's truck?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that would be a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
Maybe it is. Maybe. I mean, he never once has it in the original series.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Honestly, I don't even really know what made me think to put this on here.
Yeah.
Considering when I made this bingo card, I don't know what made me think about the truck, but I did.
Funny. Okay.
An early target escapes, and Dexter has to catch him before he's exposed.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
That did happen.
Look at you.
Someone inside Miami Metro becomes Dexter's first big bad.
Oh my God.
And then the freebie, the middle thing. So Masuka makes a wildly inappropriate comment or joke. Then we have 2 that have not yet happened. Tanya Martin makes a subtle Buffy reference.
Wait,
no
what?
obvious.
Oh, okay.
She has not. These are ones that have not transpired.
She has not. Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm surprised they have not done that. Although she did have a line of dialogue in episode 9 that made me go, "Fuck, that's Buffy."
Oh, really?
When she comes in and she hands him the stuff, she's like, I'm gonna need you to draw blood, and he's like, no, I think I'm fine. She's like, that was not a request, that
Yeah,
was an order. And then
right.
she says in like a really cutesy way, she's like, go forth, draw much blood. And I was like, oh, that.
Is that Buffy? Okay.
She was channeling Buffy right there. It was not like an obvious callback,
Yeah.
but she like went into Buffy's like as a character first. But I didn't count that.
I need to watch Buffy.
It's a great show. I put a dog barks at Dexter or tries to attack Dexter.
Yeah.
Has not happened.
Okay. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I know.
Dang, okay.
Deb becomes the target of a predator and Dexter kills him. I feel like we were close. I feel like we were real close.
Yeah. We're super
and maybe
close.
it could still happen if Geo comes back in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I put the Dexter Harry training montage.
Mm-hmm.
We got the hunting scene, but that's not a montage.
Right.
Retelling of the nurse kill from Popping Cherry, obviously, first episode. Dexter almost kills an innocent.
Ooh.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't filled this one in yet, but I'm
damn close.
I feel like I'm close. LaGuerta hits on Dexter a lot. No, she is not interested in him in the slightest in this season.
Yeah.
A secret motive is revealed for Harry's decision to train Dexter. I'm counting the revelation about his son drowning in the pool before Dexter was born as being a secret motivation, because we never knew that happened.
Yeah.
And it definitely painted his whole worldview and how he decided to approach the situation with Dexter.
Well, that one's super interesting too, because I was having at the breakfast I was talking about earlier, I was talking to my friend about I was telling her about Harry and like why he's decided to like train Dexter the way he has. And it led to like a 15-20 minute discussion of like, what would you do if you found out that your kid was like this serial killer and you had a way of like curbing that appetite? Like what would you do with that? And it was a super interesting conversation. So
I have no idea.
I know.
I as someone who doesn't even have children,
sure,
I have no idea how parent version of myself would
feel.
Would think. Non-parent version of me right now would be like, I would probably not do what Harry did.
Right.
But I don't know. I literally, it's a frame of reference I do not have. So, last few here, I have Dexter uses the term dark passenger for the first time while talking to Harry. He has used the term, but it's been in his monologue and he hasn't said it out loud to Harry,
it's been Michael C. Hall's monologue. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And then the last one, one of the last ones. The season finale is controversial / divisive.
Okay.
And I'll tell you right now, if my theory is correct, it will probably be controversial. In the last two, Michael C. Hall makes a surprise appearance at Comic-Con, which obviously he did. And I grade this one out because it's impossible now. It says Original Sin renewed for season 2 ahead of season premiere. I thought maybe it was gonna be one of those situations where like they went ahead and just greenlit the second season before the first season aired. It's at this point we haven't even seen a renewal yet, but if it's gonna happen, I think it's gonna happen this week or shortly after the finale is aired.
That was
if it's going to happen at all.
That was a risky box, Nick. That was a risky box.
It was a risk. I mean, bingo is only interesting if you're taking some risks here. It's funny, I made a bingo card, which considering what happens in episode 9. That was my bingo card.
Which direction do you think you would win on if you were to win on one? I can share it again if you want.
Wait, hold on. I got it. I guess gonna do this again. Window. Here we go. All right. Okay. If I was going to get one, oh god, honestly,
far left.
I don't think it's gonna. If Geo somehow comes back and Dexter kills him in the last episode, I don't think that's gonna happen. Honestly, I don't think there's a bingo here. I don't think it's gonna happen.
You should
unless we get a training montage in the last episode, which wouldn't make any sense.
You should extend this to season 2.
Oh, I will. I'm gonna do this for. I think it'll be really hard to do it for Resurrection, but that's gonna be interesting to make. But
how did you?
Unless they.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No good.
Unless they show Dr. Vogel, they mention Dr. Vogel, they
Mhm.
show Jean,
Yeah.
and the season finale is divisive. I don't think there's
Yeah.
or they do a Buffy reference and a dog barks at him in the last episode. Those are the closest I think will come.
I mean, you could get left to right if they just show Jean.
Yes, if they just show Jean, but at this point, like, what reason? Unless
he buys the
he
boat.
appears, unless he buys the boat, and Jean is there to help oversee the transaction.
Yep. Oh man,
that's a possibility. That would, you know what? I think you're right. I think if there's a way, that's gonna be it.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's, sorry, that was an unexpected detour for this
No,
conversation.
that was so much fun. How did you make that bingo card?
Oh, I don't know. You mean like literally how did I do it, or just I just did it in Photoshop?
Is there an oh okay, I was gonna ask if there was like an app or something, because that's super fun. Okay.
No, yeah, I made a template for a bingo card in Photoshop, which I still have. So all I got to do is just retype the text and drag new photos over them and stuff. But
I love that. I love that so much. It
was fun. It was fun.
Okay, so let's go back to episode 8. Geo is going up to Bimini, which is where Dexter goes to kill Estrada's henchmen in season 3. I only remembered this because I literally just watched season 3.
Well, it's not Estrada's henchman in season 3, right? It's the guy on the cruise ship, isn't it? Or am I forgetting something?
You're right. It is the guy on the cruise ship. Who is that? Is that
actually, I don't even technically know if he went to Bimini, because if you remember, he was trying to make an excuse to Miguel for why he was going out on his boat so early in the morning, and he's like, "I'm going fishing. I'm going out to Bimini to go fishing."
Yeah.
And then he went to the cruise ship. And then when Rita got when she started bleeding and she was pregnant and she went to the hospital, and he was like, "I called the Coast Guard and they were looking for you all over Bimini and you weren't there."
That's
kind of thing.
Right.
I don't think he ever actually went to Bimini. But they didn't mention. But every time I hear Bimini, just in general, I think about this.
Okay, see, I thought I was going to be able to draw a line between Bimini and Estrada and make a case for Geo being Estrada's son.
Gotcha. No, you know what? You know what
fair.
Crazy
That's
thought
fair.
I had, and what crazy thought I actually had in episode 8 that I don't think I subscribe to anymore, just because at this point I think Geo's story is probably over.
Yeah.
Is they focused him and Deb were in his apartment. They focus on that like snake looking thing, the gold snake thing on the counter, and it made me think of Tony Ferrer's ring. They were drawing attention to that snake ring that Tony Ferrer was wearing. I was like, is he related to Tony Ferrer? Maybe
that's gotta be it, right?
I mean, maybe it was just a sort. I mean, I don't know if they're going anywhere with that. I think Geo's story, now that Deb has I think that's done.
No way. I don't think that at all. I think it comes back in season 2.
Maybe if they do a season 2, I wouldn't be surprised if Geo comes back.
I think it for sure does, because there's no way that they set up this whole thing. He's been in such a spotlight, and he's been like, they were carrying like drugs or whatever onto his boat or whatever. I think there's no way he doesn't come back. There's no way. And
it's just weird, like if they haven't technically been renewed for a second season, it's like they're planting seeds for something they don't even know is going to happen yet, unless they already know it's happening and they just haven't told anybody yet.
I think everybody knows it's getting a second season.
I think they're doing. I think they're holding back. Like I think on Friday when this finale airs, it's going to be, here's the finale, here's season 2 is coming, and here's a teaser trailer for Resurrection. I think I have a feeling like all 3 of those things are probably going to happen on Friday, which is another reason I'm excited.
Yes,
another reason I'm excited.
Okay, so yeah, Geo, speaking of him, fast forward a little bit to when they go out to Bimini and all that stuff. He's got all of these things under his seats. What do you part of me is like, oh, it's just like cocaine or whatever, but another part of me is like, what if it's like body parts? Because they're in like these refrigerated boxes almost. Like
he could be like it could have been like
kidneys or
like it could have been black market organs and shit like that. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
because I feel like if it was drugs, she would have just seen a bunch of like tightly packed packages of cocaine or something, but they were in those like weird
like
what looks
almost like cooler boxes.
Yeah. That's a good theory. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And what
I
about
kind of stopped. I kind of pushed it out of my mind because I was like, I don't think we're gonna see Geo again this season. So I kind of like pushed it out there.
Yeah, I think he's a lot more important. I really do. I think there's no way they've invested so much into this character. There's no way that he's just like a random boyfriend. But
I hope
also,
so. I mean, it'd be cool. I would let. It's funny. It's so funny. Like when I see a character on the show that I like, but not because they're like a likable character, like they're a potential bad guy. My first thought is, man, I'd love to see him on a kill table. Like it's super fucked. But
isn't
I'm
that
like,
super
man,
messed up?
like when they announced when they announced Patrick Dempsey, I was like, man, if he ends up being the bad guy, it'd be really cool to see a Patrick Dempsey in a kill room scene.
Right?
And
Yeah.
it turns out it was pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about Geo kind of like freaking out on Deb and being like, I thought you were going to be a good girl and like you need to get out of here and all this stuff. It's like, why did he not just be like, hey, you're like a fucked up person too. Like, can you be cool about that? Or not like a fucked up person, but like,
yeah,
Deb's doing drugs. Like she's doing like, she knows that she's in something that is like a little risque. You know what I mean? Why was he not like, hey, can you be cool about this? Or can you like not be cool about this? Like
to that point, I think it's probably because if they are going to go somewhere, that you're probably right. It's probably more
Body
serious
parts,
than
yeah.
drugs. It's
Yeah.
probably black market shit.
Yep.
And that is not something that like doing drugs is one thing, but like seeing somebody smuggle human body parts is probably a completely different thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Deb would not be cool. She'd be. I honestly think Deb would be like, "Oh, you're a drug dealer. Like whatever. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Ooh, you can give me some good shit.
Right.
But
yeah, I think it's more than that. I think Geo has a much bigger role to play. Okay, so we see Miguel Prado. I love this. I texted you right away the second it happened, and I was like, "We got Miguel Prado."
It took my wife and I when we were watching season 8 together. It took us so long to get through season 8, or I keep saying season episode 8. It took us so long to get through the episode because we were constantly pausing and going, "What the fuck?
Yeah,
like, did you see that? Like, oh my god!" And like just like pointing at stuff, like, "Oh my god, the fucking boat and Miguel Prado and Brian Moser and like all this shit." Like it was just constant. It took us probably like an hour and 20 minutes to watch an episode that was only 50 minutes long.
Right.
Yep. But
yeah.
This is a great cameo. My only complaint about the scene, and this is something I think the whole season has kind of struggled with, not struggled, but like they're being really handholdy with some of the dialogue, and it kind of bothers me. And it's weird. Like I don't like they had to go at like people who watched the show immediately were like, "Holy shit, that's Miguel Prado!" And then she had to go up to Harry and be like, and that's Miguel Prado. He was, wants to be ADA." And
I'm the guy. Like, I'm the guy that wouldn't have known it was Miguel Prado.
Oh, okay.
Like,
then maybe I think if she had just said his name is Miguel,
yeah, for sure, it could have been subtle.
Like, how often are you just kind of like offhandedly telling somebody else about someone you know? Do you mention first and last name?
Right.
Like it was purely like saying the word Prado is like a, hey, you get this? Yeah. You get this? It's Miguel Prado.
Yeah. See.
A simple Miguel and or even just like leaving like he wants to be ADA someday kind of thing would have probably been enough for a lot of people to put 2 and 2 together. Yeah. And even if you don't get it on the first viewing, like that's fine. Like it's one of those things that you might realize the second time you watch it or something. Like they're just being kind of like it's the same thing that the one complaint I've had with like some of these recent episodes that they keep doing these little like quick flashbacks to things they just fucking showed us.
Yeah.
And it's like we get it. Like I know what you're referring to because we just watched it.
Right.
It's just a weird thing that's happening in the editing room.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why. It's like they don't trust the audience to kind of like be putting some of this stuff together.
Yep.
It doesn't ruin anything. It's just kind of like also the same thing with like at the end of the episode where you see Spencer like buying the Lunchables thing at the grocery.
That was I rolled so hard when we saw him buying the Lunchables. I was like, come on, dude.
If episode 7 had ended with him looking at the blood slide, and then episode 8 starts with Spencer taking the jersey and then pulling his mask off.
Yeah, that would have been
It
great.
would have been fine. That would have been total. Like we would be like, I get okay. It's Spencer? It's got to be Spencer. And then open episode 8, we confirm it's fucking Spencer. Like that's all that needed to happen. They're being a little handholdy. I don't feel like they were that way with New Blood. I don't feel like they were that way with a lot of the original series, at least in the original Clyde Phillips era. They were kind of handholdy in a lot of things with the last 4 seasons.
I kind of wonder if the reason that they're doing that is because they know that this series, that original sin is going to bring in new people, and
I think it's for their benefit.
They may even be watching it with someone who has seen the main series. And so, if you're sitting on a couch with somebody and your wife or whatever is like, oh, she says like Miguel Prado or whatever, you can then be like, yeah, that's a character from the main series that we've seen before. And maybe it helps bridge that gap a little bit. But at the same time, it's kind of like some of it is just like, dear Lord, like
and that's like maybe like my biggest complaint with the series, which I think is really like, honestly, like if you had told me like 6 months ago that the biggest complaint I was gonna have was gonna be some handholdy dialogue, I would have been like, oh, thank God.
Thank God.
So I don't have a huge problem with it or anything.
Same.
It's just like it's also probably about kind of like if they are trying to get people on, like new people on board, it's probably like the quick flashbacks things are probably like in some way kind of like training a new audience to kind of like notice things or what you should be kind of paying attention to, that kind of stuff. So what it is. That's a minor gripe.
Harry and LaGuerta go on this road trip, and we do not get a sexy, like a steamy sex scene. I was sure that they were gonna fuck.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm gonna turn my fan on. Yeah, definitely thought they were gonna bone. Did not happen.
Yep. Yeah.
But also not like, not disappointing or anything. It's just kind of something I expected to happen that didn't.
Right.
They subverted expectation.
Yeah.
But also,
in a very different...
There's still an episode left.
Right.
They could happen. Totally do that.
Could happen. Harry, in a flashback, Harry is spotted by Estrada's guy spying on them, and this is how we know, or this is how they know that she is. Because up until this point, like, I'm sure they had their suspicions, because obviously they're following her and spying on her.
Right.
But this is the nail in the coffin, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I think this was, I think they went through the trouble of doing one of the, the secret meetup where they're like sitting facing opposite directions and like talking to, it's just like classic subterfuge kind of thing, which is fine. But like doing that with the 2 boys running around was maybe
so
a little
dumb. I was like,
little risky.
I was like, why are you guys in a park? Like, what?
Like they're not, those kids aren't gonna know not to like interact with Harry.
Right.
Like, come on.
What are you thinking? Oh my God. That
but I mean, like, the whole
drove me nuts.
I mean, there was the whole affair in general was a terrible idea for this exact reason. Like, there's a reason why it's not a good idea to like have an affair with a CI. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why that shit's dangerous and why it's frowned upon. And this is exactly why. Like, you're thinking about you're thinking with your heart instead of thinking about like making the smartest moves. And this is, it just lends itself to, the tragedy, right? I mean, I think if this was someone that Harry wasn't like emotionally invested in, I don't think he would have made the same mistake.
Oh, totally. I'm sure that Harry's done this a bunch of times with somebody who isn't romantically involved with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you can explain this a little bit more to me. Harry and LaGuerta show up to Petrie's home, and it turns out to be an active crime scene. They now need to get the local authorities involved. They find out that he's been dead for 3 weeks. And I did love that LaGuerta was like, I wish your son was here so that he could do his thing. Because in the whatever episode she first appears in, she's kind of like looking down on him, like, you're not a real forensics. She's starting to come
around on his talent.
And now she's like, oh, he's got like a little bit of a gift, doesn't he? And
it's also a little bit of a double entendre though too, because like when Harry hears her say that, he's like, he's thinking do his thing would be like
Oh, yeah,
kill the guy who did this.
right.
Um,
I didn't catch
so he's,
that. That's a good idea.
I mean, they're both like those are both very valid. Like it's just like double meaning, which I thought was really smart.
That's great. So who is Petri? Maybe it's something I missed in a previous episode or something, but who is this Petri guy?
So Petri, so this is one thing they kind of glossed over, and they, and I think it was the last episode, or maybe the episode before, but it was after the body was found in the one where with bags over his head,
Yeah,
whatever they were like grasping at straws, trying to find
a connection.
a lead, I guess, on that case or whatever. And they just kind of like offhandedly said something about they put out a bolo on cars with stolen license plates or something. And I don't know, they didn't really clarify like what prompted them to do that. Maybe there was a car reported near the crime scene that was, I don't know.
Was
but they
this
put a
the guy
bolo
that
out on
owned
it.
that car? That sold
Yes.
that car to the family?
Yes.
Oh.
They tracked down that car. The car was sold to that family. And then they ended up figuring out who sold the car, and it was Petri. But he was in Tampa, so they drove to Tampa.
So who is like how does he fit into all of this then? Because Harry and LaGuerta go back to the cop shop and they're like, here's all the files. They're like,
I love that.
Here's all the files relating to Petri. And I was like, why does Petri have like
he's a psychiatrist.
Oh.
Those were all of
That's
those
the
were all
thing
of his
I'm missing.
patient.
Okay.
Those were all of his patient files. Yeah, if you go back and watch that scene where they're looking at they're walking them through the crime scene, they say that he was a psychiatrist at this mental hospital.
Okay.
And whoever killed him tore off a page of his calendar, so we couldn't tell who he was supposed to meet that week. And they were like, yeah, we have suspects. We have a whole mess of files from his office. It's like 300 something patients that he's treated over the last 22 years. And that's what they went back to the station to dig through.
Okay, that's the puzzle piece I was missing. Because I was like, how does he connect to Brian Moser?
He is Brian Moser's psychiatrist. And
Okay.
maybe outpatient psychiatrist,
Sure.
I think, because the implication seems to be that he was discharged at some point. And I would imagine that part of his discharge from the mental hospital was that he had to continue seeing a psychiatrist as an outpatient.
Yeah.
So it seems like he was meeting with him at his home and he killed him.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And speaking of Brian, we get a beautiful flashback where Harry is looking at the blood splatter, and then that fades into the nail that Brian is painting. I thought that was a great shot.
It's such such a little detail that like someone watching the show for the first time probably doesn't register for them. But like once you've watched the first season and you see how obsessed he is with like painting his victims' nails.
Yeah.
Like it kind of puts like we were kind of led to believe in the first season that like he was just his mom liked to paint her nails that way. So that's why he likes that doing that. Or that's why But now we find out that like on the day she died, he was painting her nails and he was picking the colors, and that's why her nails were painted that way.
And not only that, but in the next episode when we see her it was horrifying, completely dismembered. Her head is sitting here, and then her hand is right next to it, and that's the last thing he sees is her head and then her hand with the painted nails. It was like right in frame. And so,
super fucked.
Yeah, super fucked. But yeah, we see Brian is painting her nails, and that kind of answers a lot of the questions that, you just said it, but, and then Estrada's guys crash in and take her and the kids.
Yeah.
Crazy scene.
Crazy scene.
Dexter goes back to Gio's place, and like, this is what I'm saying. There is no way that Gio doesn't come back. They're putting so much effort into the storyline. Dexter goes back to Gio's place and meets his fiancée, Ariana. and she's
that's her name. I didn't even know.
yeah,
I didn't know
and
she had a name.
yeah, she's well aware of Geo. She's like, it's probably a fuck trip. Like he's taking her away to go like fuck her. And so she's well aware of all of his things. And then she also says, like, she's like, I told Geo that I was in New York visiting my sister. She's like, I don't have a sister.
I'm an only child.
Yeah, and so she's like, she's also doing the same thing. And so I don't know. I thought this was super interesting. Like the whole Geo storyline has gotten so interesting because I'm like, there's no way he doesn't come back. Like he has to play. Like, can you?
I mean, I kind of hope he does because I like the character. I certainly like the character a lot. So.
Can you think of any other character in the whole Dexter series that was spotlighted this much that didn't have a role? Like even the girl that ended up being Trinity's daughter. We get a lot of stuff with her, and it's like, where is this character going? And then you find out that she's Trinity's daughter. Geo's got to play some sort of role like that, I would think.
Yeah, that's a good question. That is a good question that I'm now struggling to think of.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you right now, the red herring in New Blood, the billionaire guy, played absolutely no role, but he wasn't.
That's right.
There wasn't quite as much effort put into that as like when you want to compare him to like Geo, but like, and he was purely there to be a red herring. I don't think that's necessarily the case here with Geo.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I gotta go back and watch New Blood. I totally forgot about that billionaire guy. Okay, so this is the big moment. Harry and LaGuerta go through the police department's files relating to Petrie, but Harry runs across B. Moser and asks LaGuerta, he's like, hey, can you go get some coffee? And then the guy in episode 2 was Brian, the guy that came up to Dexter.
Fucking nailed it. Like, not me. I'm saying like the audience. Fucking the moment they saw him, they were like, "That's fucking Brian."
Yep.
They were right.
I was one of those that was like, I think this is Brian. And in the episode where we talked about that, you're like, there's no way it's Brian. And like you,
I was super suspicious of it. I mean, doubtful of the whole thing.
Yeah.
When it first happened, and then the more people talked about it, and and then I went back and watched it like 5 times, and I was like, okay,
it might be Brian.
maybe there's something here. And then I kept thinking about like, God, this interaction in this restaurant makes no sense. Like, what the fuck is this guy do? Like, who walks up to someone, a stranger in a restaurant, and asks if they could sit at their table?
Yeah,
like it doesn't make any sense. And Dexter is just oblivious to it because he doesn't know how anybody actually interacts. Because he doesn't understand people. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
and that also loosely, like, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, it was such a afterthought. It was almost blink and you miss it kind of thing, and it just had people like going in circles, like, is it or isn't it, for like the whole season.
Yep.
And I feel like that bigger theory that I have, which again could be total bullshit, but like there is evidence that they're planting similar seeds very, very sneakily that could be alluding to something big. And I hope so, because that was a huge reveal. Like when we found out this was real, I was like, oh my God, it is fucking Brian Moser. That's crazy. Also, they're doing this. They've shown Brian Moser on screen now in episode 9.
Yeah.
And he has a part, he has dialogue, he's a major part of the season at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way they are, one, not preparing to do a second season where he is a major recurring character, and or preparing that actor to be the star of a spinoff about Brian Moser.
Oh,
like there's like, that would be like, he is a dead ringer, and he's
a dead ringer for Brian. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about him.
It's like I still keep thinking about the fact that they've already like greenlit this Trinity prequel thing, and I'm like, that's the one project that I'm like,
that is
I don't
so
really know
stupid
how I feel about it.
I
mean, like they could prove me wrong, I suppose. But like, if you're gonna do a prequel about a Dexter villain, do about Brian. Don't do it about Trinity.
There's not enough.
There's no
Trinity.
gray area. There's no gray area with Trinity. He's a monster, and so is Brian. But like, we understand Brian. We know where he's coming. He is directly connected to Dexter, and
right.
So we will always kind of like not understand, but sympathize.
We
maybe
get
to a
it.
point.
We get it to an extent, and
There's probably stories to tell there. I don't know what that story is.
sure.
Because the thing that makes Dexter in general as a really fun show is that we root for Dexter, even though we technically shouldn't be because he's a killer.
Yeah.
I don't think the same thing can be applied to Brian. Nobody's rooting for Brian to murder people.
I don't know.
So I
I
don't know what the crux is there.
I think that's what they're doing here. I think they're making us sympathetic to Brian because
I don't think I do. He's the things that he's done, especially what he does at the end of episode 9, is fucking barbaric.
oh sure, yeah, but
it
I
is
think
so far beyond what Dexter does. It's crazy.
but we understand him more now. Now we understand that he killed this lady because she like split them up and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
It's great stuff and it's brilliant, but I'm sitting here, I'm trying to imagine what a bigger story, and this applies to Trinity too. I'm trying to imagine what is the thing that ties this all together that makes the audience want to watch a series about this, because you're taking the one thing that makes Dexter special out of the show.
Yeah.
So what is left for us to cling to? I don't know. That's another rabbit hole we don't need to go down right now. But
sure. I'm gonna speed us through episode 8 because I want to make sure that you can get to bed on time and everything. But Deb says, she's like, I'm so stupid. It's like he was some other person and I didn't even know. This is after Dexter comes out to the island and rescues her. Great scene. Fantastic. I loved it. They have this amazing hug and she's crying into his shoulder. I'm like, this is a great moment.
Also, funnily enough, that was the first scene they ever filmed together.
Oh.
Patrick Gibson and Molly Brown, that was their first day on set sharing a scene together.
Wow. What
the hug on the beach.
What great chemistry. That's so cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Because that was part of the first 10 days of filming were actually in Miami, and that was one of them.
Okay.
All the stuff that happened in Bimini was actually filmed on location in Miami.
Okay. That's cool. So then she says something really ironic. She says, I'm so stupid, it's like he was some other person and I didn't even know. And then the camera just pans over to Dexter.
And he has this look of
oh, well.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And she says, fuck liars, and throws her bracelet into the water.
My wife and I both were like, you should have pawned that.
You should have pawned that.
Immediately. And then she has...
What are you thinking?
And she has the same realization.
Oh my god. I couldn't believe that.
But it gives Dexter the idea.
Yes. He says, once it's in the ocean, it's gone forever. Giving him the idea.
Is it, though?
Is it? So yeah, that was a great scene. We see all of these things starting to coalesce.
Yes.
Okay, so then... real quick, I do love this scene where they're on the boat. She says, Mom was the only one who got me. Dexter says, for what it's worth, I get you. And she says, oh great, my freak brother is the only one who understands me. I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Great scene all the way around. Love it.
So we got the SWAT raid. Do you want to talk about the SWAT raid? And what happens there? Do you want to break that down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, so we touched on it a little bit earlier, but earlier we see when Dexter's following Spencer, he sees him hand a mysterious bag over to this junkie looking guy, and then he follows the junkie back to the house, and then flash forward to the end of the episode, and he's joining Miami Metro as they're getting ready to raid this house, which they're only raiding because there was an anonymous tip called into the tip line, which we assume is Spencer calling to say, Nikki was spotted at this house. So the whole team just descends upon this house. And in this moment, before he's really figured out where they're going, he's thinking to himself, well, maybe I got this all wrong. Mm-hmm. Maybe Nikki is at the park house. And he sees the gnome, which was outside the house. He followed the junkie to, and he's like, what the fuck? Uh-huh. And he realizes, he says this great line, or his Michael C. Hall's monologue says that he's like, I wasn't projecting my darkness, I was witnessing it. Mm-hmm. And he was starting to realize that Spencer is orchestrating this whole thing to make the police think the cartel are the ones responsible for Nikki's. At this point, he doesn't know what was in the bag.
Right.
But they raid the house. Spencer goes in with the team, which I thought was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's the 90s. And also, he is a captain, so he can probably do whatever the fuck he actually wants.
Right.
So he's, despite the humongous conflict of interest, he goes in with the fucking team.
This whole thing is a conflict of interest. Like, the entire case is like a major conflict of interest.
They have the deputy chief there, which I think is the one technically like calling the shots because he can't be the one leading the team.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, technically, he has stepped into like the second position. Like he's now taking orders from the deputy chief. That's how I understand it, but whatever. That's not a hero.
Is the deputy chief the one that asked for his gun later on? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we saw him briefly in, I think, episode 6.
Okay.
And he came in and was like, "I'm taking over the investigation."
Right.
And he was like, "No, I have to stay." Blah blah. And so I think it was basically like, "You can stay, but you're taking orders from me."
Right. Okay. Okay.
So they raid the house. Everything goes smoothly at first. Spencer starts pushing some buttons.
Yes.
And eventually he things get heated and someone pulls a gun and a firefight breaks out.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, all the cartel members in the house die.
Yeah.
At the hands of the police. And Bobby takes a bullet to the neck, which looks fucking brutal.
Yep.
And that was really scary because I was like, I like Bobby. I don't want Bobby to die.
I know.
I mean, I think it's an inevitability at some point. I kind of hope it's not here because I like Bobby, especially if we're going to have a season 2. I would love him to be in season 2.
Right.
But anyways,
how is Spencer not fired after this? Like,
well, I think it comes down to a couple things. One, it's fantasy.
Yeah, sure.
2, he is the captain, which is technically the highest ranking member on the team. So he can and 3, I think this is going to be a situation where, in retrospect, a lot of people are going to have a lot of regrets about the whole sending him in to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And also, I think a lot of this this is not coming from any, like, I don't have any actual authority on the subject, but I feel like things were probably a little different in the 90s about the way things operated.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the way other things are handled here. It's just
right.
Maybe it wasn't as big a deal as it would be today. I don't know.
Right.
But anyways, at the end, when the dust is settled, Dexter comes in with the team to scour for forensics and everything.
Yeah.
And the whole thing broke out when Bobby actually found the jersey on the ground.
Yes.
And Spencer got heated, and then someone pulled a gun, blah, blah, blah. So we have this moment now where they're entering the house, everybody's dead, and there's Spencer holding this jersey, looking at it very longingly, like very sad.
Mm-hmm.
And Tanya has to come in and like take it from him very reluctantly.
Right.
She's like, "I'm sorry, I had to take that," kind of thing, which is also a really touching moment. I like that. But again, we have another just fantastic like monologue from Michael C. Hall, where he talks about how everybody has darkness they think they can hide from everybody else around them, but not from me. He's like, "I've always been able to see it in other people ever since I was a kid." And I was like, I love this. Is such a like great thing, but it also kind of contributes to like he is like starting to get really confident,
right?
And starting to like he's like, I am really good at this.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so that's unless I'm forgetting. Well,
that's pretty much it.
That's where like the raid kind of ends, right?
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the last shot of the episode, which is the
LaGuerta
shipping container.
Oh yeah, there's
wait,
that.
What did I miss?
LaGuerta, she looks at the files that Harry took. She finds the Brian Moser files.
So, which is interesting. They've let LaGuerta find out about Brian Moser at this point, which I thought was interesting because in the original series, like she doesn't even recognize Brian Moser's name. Like in season 7, Matthews tells her that Dexter had a brother named Brian Moser, and that's when she realizes Brian Moser, the ice truck killer. And then she's like, what the fuck? So like she's heard the name. We now know she has heard the name Brian Moser before. Yeah, but again, 16 years, a lot of things can,
so
go out.
Two things, 16 years, but also we find out in episode 9 we find out that she goes to look at the records, but Dexter's name is not in there.
Yeah, Camilla had already omitted Dexter's name per Harry's request.
Yeah.
Has omitted his name from all the records.
So that may be true, that she was like, wait, what? Dexter's brother was the ice truck killer? Like, maybe she obviously never puts the pieces together. Yeah. I think
that's just one of the things you have to remember. Like, a lot of time passes between this point and when she hears the name Brian Moser again.
Right.
And when you're in law enforcement, you see that many bad guys passing through your doors. You know what I mean? Like, that name may not necessarily mean anything to her at this point. At that point. So, but they are definitely planting the seeds here, and they're going somewhere with it. So
yeah,
they must have allowed LaGuerta to be in on this at this point for a reason. And that's one thing I'm actually not sure about. I don't really know what the end game is with that.
Right.
But interesting retcon. Like, I mean, I always hate using the term retcon because retcon, I think, has like a negative connotation, but like it's a new piece of information.
Yeah.
And it's like, they've done it, they've introduced it, and now they have to do something with it.
Right.
And I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That's interesting. Dexter, he found the bag, and we even see it in episode 9. And I thought he was going to trace the bag back to the little mini mart or whatever where he was getting these Lunchables and get like security cam footage or something. And he might still do that, I guess, but I thought for sure, like, he pulls a fingerprint off of it.
I don't think this is one of those situations, again, I don't think he's going as far as he could to like really prove his theories.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't really know. I mean, like, I mean, what's Dexter gonna do? Walk into this store as a intern and be like, I need to see your security cam footage?
No, I think he would sneak into the back, like, or late at night and find the tapes or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I mean, I just think so much of this is actually pointing to him not following the code as well as he should be.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So the episode ends with a flashback. We see the shipping container. Estrada is there in the container. That's something we were talking about last time. Is Estrada in the container with her while she's getting cut up? And the last thing we see is my note is a little wrong here. We don't see Laura get cut up. We see,
which I'm actually pretty thankful for. I was worried they were going to get. I was like, I wanted the violence to be driven home, but I didn't necessarily want to watch Laura get cut up. Yeah. And they did that. They showed these other poor souls that were in the container with them. They start with them.
Yeah.
And I was really wondering if that was going to be all we saw, or if they were going to open episode 9 and show Laura actually being murdered. But nope, they just kind of use this moment to like, this is what they're about to do to Laura.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple interesting things. Like, one, she was in the container with other people. We never knew that before. And then also Dexter and Brian are watching all of these other people get cut up before she gets cut up.
You know why I think they did that? Aside from the need to like show the violence happening to someone other than Laura, they talked a lot about it in the first season of the show, that like Dexter was left sitting in a pool of blood that was like 3 inches thick, and like you think about the size of a shipping container, one body being cut into pieces in a shipping container is not going to leave that much blood. Yeah, you really need multiple people present. Like, and they did it so that in episode 9, when you see them open the doors to the shipping container, you see that like ocean of blood come like pouring out. And in order for that to be the way things happened, it needed to be multiple people. Super fucked up.
That's a good point. And so we see Dexter like seeing all of this. Like, he has his eye open and he's watching all of
Laura
this.
doing a really terrible job of covering his face.
Yeah, but
to be fair,
hell?
She's terrified. She's terrified. Like she's like probably just like, I think I've got it, but she's just too busy being terrified out of her fucking mind. Right. In that moment, right?
Yeah.
She tried.
Yeah.
She just failed. That's all.
Yeah. We do see later her in pieces, which was horrifying. Like the fact that
Yeah.
we actually get to see her body parts like cut up. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they just showed that."
Yeah.
Um but it also makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I never put two and two together before, but Dexter, when he kills his victims, he cuts them into pieces and puts them in bags.
Yep.
I never correlated that with the idea that Estrada had like cut all of these other people into pieces and like
Yeah. Same thing with Brian. He does the
yeah,
same thing with his victims. He cuts
yeah.
them into pieces. And in New Blood, actually, there's a comment from Deb where she says something. Do you ever think it's funny that like you watched your mother get cut up into little tiny pieces, and now that's exactly what you do?
Oh, maybe I
Like
missed that. Oh my
I mean,
God.
it's not like one of those moments that like
Yeah.
sticks in your head but like she definitely says that verbatim because it's when they're talking about it's after he finds Harrison's razor blade
Yeah.
and he's like realizing that like Trinity used razor blade to kill his mom. And she's like, you
Right.
don't think it's funny that like you watched your mom get cut up in little pieces and now you do the exact same thing?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. Well, that's where that episode ends. So we're going into episode 9 titled Blood Drive. Yeah. This is the one, man. This is the one that is
The
like
penultimate episode written by one Scott Reynolds,
Scott
the
Reynolds.
executive producer. He wrote The Family Business and New Blood, the second to last episode in that season as well. The one
Okay.
everybody thought was the best episode of that season. It's the one
Interesting.
where they actually kill Kurt Caldwell.
Okay. Yeah, that was
yeah.
a fantastic episode. Did he write any other episodes in this season?
Yeah, he's written quite a few. Oh, maybe not this season. I mean, he is like one of the lead writers on the show. Like he's part of the writers' room and whatnot.
Yeah.
But he's been an executive producer and like he's like Clyde Phillips' like right hand man, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. But he's been on Dexter since day one, since
Okay.
way back in the day. But yeah, it just he wrote The Family Business in New Blood, and everybody loved that episode.
Does
So
he
people were like waiting for his episode in this season for
right.
like, let's see if he can do 2 for 2. And I think he did a pretty damn good job.
I think he did a pretty damn good job, dude. And does he usually stick to like one episode per season to be like the lead writer on?
I think so. I mean, I think he has his hands in a lot of them, but like, yeah, I think a lot of the writers end up having like episodes where they're kind of like the lead credit on the writing because they took kind of like the lead on it, even though they're always technically written by a team, but like
yeah,
he's the guiding force of that particular episode.
Okay.
I think starting with New Blood anyway is kind of like what they've been doing is Clyde Phillips writes the first episode and the last episode. Scott Reynolds writes the second to last episode, and then other people take the reins for the episodes in between.
Okay.
But just an interesting fact. It's like they've kind of established a pattern at this point, and I think episodes written by Scott Reynolds and episodes written by Clyde Phillips tend to be ones you should keep your eye on because they're usually doozies.
Yeah. And this was a doozy. The episode opens with Brian at bingo night.
Brian at bingo night.
Dude, the reveal, like, at first I was like, I turned on the episode and I was like, what's going on? Is this bingo? And then it kind of shows like this old lady and she's like doing her bingo thing. And then the camera pans over to Brian and I was like, no fucking way. He's at bingo.
It harkens back to Brian in season 1 where he pretends to be the TV repairman for that old lady across the street, and she's talking about when he goes and when he kills Dexter's biological father, and they end up driving to the house, right? Brian was the one who killed him. They don't know this, but Brian's the one who killed him, and then the lady across the street saw him, so he ends up having to like kill her, but like she's just like treating him like, oh, he's this really nice handsome man, you gonna fix my TV, Mr. TV repairman,
right?
Like yeah, so this like kind of this whole thing where he's having this like nice like chit chat with this older lady,
It's
It's
so
good. It's good.
I wrote down here. I'm like, first of all, he looks just like him.
Very good casting. I can't.
Yeah,
They've been so good
so
with the casting.
good. How
Yeah.
like I'm like I think we talked about this before, so I'll be brief. But there's other shows where it's like oh we like Last of Us. That's my perfect example because I think Bella Ramsey is a fine actress, but
Mhm.
I'm just like, what? Like, it's just such a weird casting for me. I just do not see her as Ellie at all.
Right.
And then you look at a show like this, and it's like, this is how you fucking nail it. Like, this is how you can get actors and actresses that look like the characters that are also good actors and actresses. You don't have to have one or the other.
I will say this about the comparison between the two. I feel like it's more important in a show like this because it's a
Yes,
direct connection to a series that already existed. The Last of Us
I
is
would
a
agree.
retelling of a story. So like technically everybody could look different as long as the characters and the arcs are the same. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
because you're not
to some
getting
extent.
that like you're not getting that like disparity between like what they look like here and what they look like there. They're
Right,
just two different versions of the same story.
right,
Here, it's like you're supposed to go into it thinking like, okay, these characters are going to like grow into these characters.
right.
So it's a little bit different, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I just
They
think you
needed they
you
needed
can
to nail the
tell.
casting from a
Yeah,
visual
like
perspective here.
I just think like you can tell that they put so much care into the casting for this, and I think it really shows, and I think it goes a long way with people. I think it goes a much longer way than people care to admit.
You know what the one casting in this I still think it's fantastic casting, but the one thing that throws me for a loop every single time in Original Sin is Masuka with hair. It it I'm
Why?
so because he has hair.
Yeah,
Like
but he's of
I'm
course he's younger.
I know, I know. It's just I know. But it's just like one of those things where it's just like it's you want to talk about like expectations for a character and then like
Yeah.
just subverting them very dramatically. But like it makes sense. He had hair, then he
Yeah.
didn't have hair. We're
Right.
seeing him before he lost his hair. It's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
It's he's a great Masuka. It's
Yeah.
just I watched him for 8 seasons where he had no hair. So it's suddenly it's like ugh.
Did you see the final cut where they were talking about him in the 90s and he's like, "Yeah, I had like a little bit of a mullet thing going on." So
Oh,
funny.
we need to talk about some of that Final Cut stuff if we have time later.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're dropping
so
some hints. They're dropping some resurrection hints. Some serious
okay. Yeah,
resurrection hints.
let's make sure that we talk about them real quick in our final thoughts when we get there because there was one with Joey Quinn. I forget the actor's name.
That's
Okay.
Desmond Harrington. That's one of the main ones. I'm like when you think about it, like
He's gonna be in Resurrection.
James Remar appeared on Final Cut, and then like within 2 weeks they had confirmed that he's back for Resurrection, and then suddenly
Yeah.
we're seeing him in like
And now C.S. Lee is in
yeah
there. It's
yeah
like,
C.S.
okay.
Lee's on there, Desmond Harrington's on there. Like they're bringing
They're
and
bringing the
Scott
crew.
and Scott Reynolds has already gone. He's like been on when they announced James Remar. He tweeted out and he's like, wait until y'all see who else we got. And it's just like,
I didn't
it
know
better be
that.
Quinn. I was like, it better be Quinn. It needs to be like, I never thought I would go to bat for Quinn being an important character, but when you think about his relationship with Deb and what
And
Dexter ultimately did,
and he
and
knows
Dexter,
he knew that Dexter was basically who he is. Like he had kind of figured it out.
yeah, if he puts two and two together and realizes that Deb is dead because of him,
Dexter? Oh.
it is like he is going to be out for blood, and I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to see that almost more than I want to see Batista and Dexter meet again. Like I can almost say that.
I didn't even think about that. That is so
Yeah.
good.
Like
Oh my god.
seeing everybody from Miami Metro suddenly in on it
Yeah.
and knowing that he is a serial killer is going to be a game changer. I'm so excited to see that dynamic.
So good. So good.
Anyways,
All
episode
right.
9.
Episode 9, Bobby's in surgery. Harry lies to LaGuardia, saying that the Brian file has nothing to do with their case.
I was like, oh my god, he's just telling her everything.
He's just
And then
telling
he
her
got to the
everything.
end, he's like, it has nothing to do with our case. I just had an affair, and I was just like, oh, okay,
good save.
stopped just shy of telling her everything.
Right. And he says he always wondered what happened to Brian, and he wanted the file to kind of like look through it or whatever. And then we also get like right after that, we get a flashback with Harry telling Spencer everything. He tells him about the affair and like the ransacked house, and Spencer takes his shield and lets him join in on the search as a uniformed officer. And this
Very
is
important.
why, yeah, this is why we see him as a uniformed officer in the original series. And
I was nervous, man. I was nervous they were just gonna say, "Fuck it, doesn't matter." Because I knew people were gonna pick that apart if they did that.
Yeah,
and they didn't. They found a way to do it.
I honestly, like, that was one of the things. I was so surprised that people cared about that. I was like,
it's just a little detail that's like, it's burned in people's brains because they've shown it multiple times of him carrying Dexter out of the container. He's wearing his blues, and it just makes people go. And then then you get to the point where we're at now in Original Sin, we're like, well, we know they're building to this moment, but why the fuck would he be wearing his blues? Like, that doesn't make any sense. He's a detective. He's a sergeant, even. I think.
Yeah, and I think it was super cool that they like went so far as to like find a reason for him to be in uniform.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't really care. I just assumed that they were gonna retcon it, and I was like fine with that. I was like, yeah, he'll show up and he'll be in his like street clothes or like his like professional attire, like his detective clothes. And so I didn't expect them to do that at all.
I honestly think, no evidence here, but I would imagine that was a little bit of Scott Reynolds' influence there, because, like I said, he's been with the show since day one in 2006, and like he knows the show inside and out. So that was probably one of the things that was, I would imagine it was like, that was one of those details. He's like, he knows he's got to keep in.
Right. Yeah.
For the connective tissue between the shows.
I certainly appreciate it. It really, it gives me so much confidence in this show and Resurrection. I'm like, they are really going to bat for this show, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dexter sneaks into Captain Spencer's bachelor pad. This was a great scene.
Oh,
this
was so good
because
I was like, damn, he's going for it, right? And he's just going to take Spencer now. And then I was like,
then Harry's there.
Honestly, when he first came in, you hear Spencer talking, and he's like, thanks for giving me a ride. I was like, is this where they're going to reveal the Tanya thing? I thought he was going to be like, I thought it was going to be he's having an affair with Tanya. And I was like, and then when that didn't happen, I was like, okay, maybe my theory is totally wrong.
Right.
But yeah, that was such a great surprise. And then just Dexter being like trapped in his bedroom and not knowing what to do.
Yeah,
I was tense. I was like gripping. I was like, what the fuck? How the hell is he gonna get out of this?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was like, what is he gonna do? How is he gonna get out of this? And he's like they're coming around the corner and he's right there. And it's like, what is gonna happen? And then you see the curtain just like kind of move just a little bit, and Spencer's like, oh, what's that? And then sure enough, Dexter has gone outside and hopped under the railing.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was so good.
Good little moment. Loved it. Yeah. It's the next morning, right?
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time my father lied to my face.
Great line.
What can you remind me what exactly this is referring to?
They're talking about their trip to Tampa, and he's like, did you find any leads on the killer? And he's like, I don't think. He's like, the suspect we have is already dead, and he's like, I don't think any of the cases are connected.
Right.
And Dexter was like, you don't think they're connected? How would you think they're not connected?
Yeah.
And Harry's just trying to get him to put it out of his mind,
right,
for obvious reasons. And
This is the
but
moment where I was like, Nick was right. Like, this is the moment where I'm like, he called it.
yeah, and like it was a big moment for Dexter. It's just Dexter doesn't know why he's lying to his face.
Right.
Which again I think is important.
Yep.
But yeah, this is definitely pushing Dexter towards like his own like brand of rebellion, which in Dexter's case is maybe a little more dangerous than when Deb rebels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Right.
He takes it pretty seriously. He feels betrayed in a way. So
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you bring your sister to work? And then Dexter is like eating something and you just get this like crunch and then like they just like stare at each other.
please no,
And I was
please
just
God
like,
no.
I was like, like, I don't know why Dexter feels so uncomfortable with this, but maybe it's just from the perspective of seeing them at Miami Metro all the time. I don't know.
think also it's just like that's like just that might just be pure like brother sister stuff. Like you know,
Right. Yeah.
like your parents tell you to take your sister, and you're just like, I don't want to take my fucking sister. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah.
Like I feel like it's just a little bit of just like actual humanity right there. Just
Right.
you know, regular old brother sister shit sneaking in.
Yeah.
But
That's so true.
it was good.
We get a flashback where, like, I don't know how you explain this. I literally, like, unless it was just blatant favoritism.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that's what happens. Well,
Harry,
maybe a little bit. He picked up Dexter first in the shipping container because obviously
Yeah.
Dexter's smaller,
Uh-huh.
and maybe he realizes he needs to get the youngest. The youngest. It's like take the women and children first. Take the youngest
Sure.
one first,
Take the
right?
youngest first. Yeah.
But the context, the thing we didn't have from the original series is that Bobby was there. So Bobby's coming in right behind him to pick
And
up
he
Brian.
picks up Brian. Yeah. That was
and a lot
that
of
was
people were
good.
kind of assuming that like right from the get-go, people were kind of like, so he just takes Dexter and leaves him and Brian is just fucked forever. No,
Right.
he definitely takes them both, but
Yeah.
he can't physically carry them both. So he's
Yeah.
picking up the youngest one first. Bobby's coming in right behind him to pick up Brian.
Yeah.
And that's not where they separated.
So what did you think? Let's just talk about all these flashbacks real quick. Like what did you think of the whole adoption process of like they both go to Harry's place and he has to tell Doris like, he brings these kids home and she's like, what the fuck? And this
I
lady
assume
comes
there's a
out.
lot they didn't show.
Sure, but
Yeah.
like regardless, the kids are in their home, and
Right.
this lady is there saying like, we don't like to have the kids split up, and Harry's like, I really just want to take Dexter, and she's like, we don't like them split up.
The conversation at the beginning is just, we need to help these boys, and he's trying to convince Doris to say yes.
Well, I think she definitely in that scene, the adoption agent, whatever, she definitely says like, we don't like them split up.
So I guess the implication is that yes, he wants to take Dexter primarily, and that's probably, I would imagine, because he did notice all the times that Brian is maybe a little fucked up.
Right? Yeah, he was fucked up before all this, and
which
Doris,
is still a fucked up thing for Harry to do, but
sure, yeah, there's things he could have done. But Doris says, hey, can I talk to my husband alone? And when the other lady leaves, she's like, are these the kids of the chick that you were having an affair with? And he says yes. And I was really surprised. I think it says a lot about Doris that she got up and went over there and picked up Dexter and said, these kids need a mom.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great. I think it says a lot about both Doris and Harry to a degree, that Harry was very forthcoming with the truth in that moment. He wasn't trying to deceptive. He was like, look, this is fucked up. I know.
Yeah.
And he's like, he didn't like try to like deny. I think this show is actually trying to go a long way towards like maybe trying to like
humanize
gain sympathy
Harry
for Harry, because at the end of the show, the show as it stood before Original Sin, I very much considered Harry to be a villain, a bad guy,
Sure.
and I definitely feel different about the character now.
Yeah.
But there's still, an episode left, so that could change. I don't know, but like it definitely paints him in a different light. You definitely understand why he did the things that he did a lot more,
Yeah.
which I think is the whole point of doing a prequel.
One
So.
thing that I really, really want is I want the turning point where Harry is like regularly telling Dexter like, you're a monster. Like, you will never have normal human connections. Like, you will never
Mhm.
like feel normal human things. Because rewatching the main series as I am right now, Harry's popping in all the time with Dexter, you can't have a normal relationship. Why are you trying to do this? Why are you trying to marry Rita? You can't do that. That's not
Yeah, but
normal
that's
for
all
you.
when he's seeing Harry in his head.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
That
like Dexter telling himself that, but he's like,
but it's got
but
to come from somewhere.
it's influenced by his memories of his father.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep coming back to this wild theory I have, but like
I'm so
I
ready
could
for it.
see if that theory comes to pass, it could very much lead to a very big shift in the way Harry views Dexter. Like
Yeah.
like it could forever change that dynamic. And I like to believe that like the writers are aware of the fact that the dynamic feels different here, and that they're maybe
Sure.
they have a target, an endpoint that they're trying to get to.
Well, here's the thing. They have nailed so many other points. I mean, we just talked about the uniform
Yeah.
that he's wearing. Like, if they're going to that level of detail to like not retcon stuff, like to not just like change storylines drastically, I have to imagine that
I
they
just
have a
think
goal in
I think
mind.
they're just being very smart about what they choose to retcon, what they choose not to retcon, because there's definitely some
Yeah.
retconning going on, but retconning for the
Is
sake
there?
of I mean, again, this is one of those things where I think the word retcon just naturally sounds negative, but like they are changing I think the thing about Harry having a son prior to Dexter is a retcon. They never mention anything
Oh,
about that.
interesting.
I think, I mean, there's
I don't
little
know if I'd even consider that a retcon.
like the fact that Vogel's not even being mentioned is kind of a retcon.
That's true.
Like
That's
it's
true.
like
Yeah.
there are things that are changing, or at least just at the very least
Mhm.
just being kind of like quietly omitted,
Sure.
which is in a way a retcon. But I just think they're being very smart about, they know what people are going to latch onto, and they know what things that it's probably safe to change.
Mhm.
Um, and I think
Yeah.
those things are fine. Like right now, like one of the big things that's commonly coming up is like, where the fuck is Captain Matthews? Because we know
Right.
Captain Matthews was like part of Harry's life, and they were like really close. They were there's a flashback of Captain Matthews interacting with Harry and Dexter and Deb on Deb's like 15th birthday or something. So like,
Yeah.
but he's nowhere to be found. But I imagine he is going to be the one that slips in to fill the position when Spencer is out of the picture. I would imagine that's
Mhm.
what's going to happen. But like, I think they know that it's kind of safe to do those things as long as you don't get explicit about like, well, that thing that we showed you before never happened. It's just we're
Yeah.
coming at it from a different angle. We're showing you different stuff, and like it'll make sense when you like really think about it. You know what I mean? Like they're just being
Yeah.
really careful about what they change and what they don't.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so to cruise through some of this, so Nikki knows it's his dad in this episode, and he asks, he's like, "Why are you doing this?" Spencer pulls off his mask and he says, "You didn't do anything wrong. This will all be over soon," and closes the door.
Yes,
Is this a scene that feeds into your theory more?
that is one of the
Okay.
exhibits
Okay.
in
Okay.
my crazy conspiracy theory going on
Very
here.
cool. Okay. So then we get, so I'm gonna skip some of the stuff we already talked about, but
Okay.
Deb talks to LaGuerta, who is cold to her. But then she goes and talks to Tanya, who is like very nice, and she says, we could use some more kick-ass women in the police department. Like, you should come work here, or like think about it a little bit more. And
And you can
Deb
see the glint in her eye.
you can see the glint in her eye. Yeah, you can see this moment where she like is like, oh, maybe. Um,
We already
and
saw
so
she had some like maybe some law enforcement instincts kicking in when she saw the stuff being loaded on Gio's boat. She
sure,
had that curiosity that is just part of being
yeah,
in law enforcement, being a detective.
yeah,
So you know
yeah,
what? I
that's
hate to
fair.
say it because I love Tanya as a character. I am one of those people that's like I wish they were using her more, and I kind of had this theory that she was maybe going to be more involved. She was going to die. She was going to be an accomplice. Something.
What is gonna happen to
I
her?
think that ship has sailed, Dan. I I don't necessarily subscribe to it anymore. It could be. I
Yeah.
mean, she could still like die in the last episode or something, but like I don't I don't think she'll be in the picture after this episode. I almost think that maybe her biggest contribution to the show at this point is going to be maybe she's the one who convinces Deb to join the force.
Wow.
And like
Do
that
you
might be
do you
it.
not think do you not think that she'll be in season 2?
I mean, she was credited as a special guest star, and those are usually like one season things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um I mean, it could be. I mean, she this is other huge news that happened in the past week.
Yeah.
Hulu is bringing back Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Um,
Oh shit.
they're reviving it, and she is going to be involved.
No
And so
way.
she is. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
What?
like all of my dreams are coming true, man. I don't understand what's happening. Like Dexter's back. The Last of Us is like one of the most popular shows on the planet.
Oh
Fucking
my God.
Daredevil's back with the original cast. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is coming back with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Joss Whedon's nowhere to be found, thank God. He's not attached to it at all. It's gonna be Chloe. I can't remember her name. Chloe Zhao, I think is her name, but she's like an Oscar-winning writer,
So
producer, director.
completely new writer.
Yeah, but like they're bringing it back, and it's gonna be like Buffy coming back and stepping into the role of being like an experienced Slayer, training a new generation of Slayers, kind of thing, and like that fucking like pinch me. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and apparently it's like this whole like Sarah Michelle Gellar in an interview was like, "Yeah, we've been talking about this. Like, I've been having coffee with this girl for like 3 years, and we've been just like workshopping this. And
No
I think we finally
way.
figured it out, and I'm excited." And I'm like, "That's amazing." But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Wow.
My point
Cheers to all the
is,
Buffy
yeah,
fans. Congratulations.
my point being, Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think she's genuinely she likes connecting with fans. She likes being
Yeah.
these kinds of things. If they asked her to come back for the second season, I'm pretty sure she would do it in a heartbeat. She
Sure.
strikes me as one of those people, and she seems like everybody on set loves her. So like, I wouldn't be surprised, if they decide to greenlight it season 2 and she comes back as like a recurring role.
Yeah.
She has
Yeah.
famously said once that she is done appearing on shows where her name is like
Lead.
the lead character. Um,
Right. Okay.
which makes sense, but like getting a comfy role on a Dexter series
Dexter. Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's gonna be gone for good after the next episode, but as of right now, maybe she's just special guest star because when they announced this, they only have one season, so like I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe.
Um,
Maybe.
but anyways, yeah,
So is she not going to be the lead role in the new Buffy show then?
I mean, I would imagine there's going to be a young
A young Buffy as she's
Slayer that's like
Yeah.
the lead, and then she is going to be
Right.
like, if you've ever seen Buffy, Buffy the Vampire
Did she,
Slayer, she has
did she have like her final ending? Like her.
I mean, there was a pretty final ending to that show, but she didn't like die or anything. It was very much like
Right.
we saved the world and she went on to live her life kind of thing. And
Right.
that's kind of like a very simple way of explaining it. But like
Sure.
that character famously has a watcher, which is her like trainer, someone who kind of like
Okay.
taught her how to do what she does, kind of like a Harry to Dexter, right?
Right.
She had
Yeah.
her Harry.
Okay.
So she would be back in the capacity of being in that role for whoever the
Very
new
cool.
Slayer is, and that's exciting. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Tanya in this last episode, but I don't necessarily think they haven't given like any indication. I think if that was going to happen,
Yeah.
she would have started to show her true colors in episode 9. But she just seems to be kind of there to provide be like a nice recurring normal person.
How
the show.
weird. How completely odd.
It is
That's
weird.
so,
I almost
bizarre.
feel like people are like, why would they cast her in a part that doesn't really mean anything? I was like, dude, I think they just cast her because they asked her because they love her and they love Buffy because it's an iconic character, and it's like they asked her and she said yes. Like it might be as simple as that.
Sure. Yeah. That's so interesting. That gets my gears turning in my brain.
But anything could happen.
Yeah. So Dexter does get Spencer on his table. He says this was the preliminary to getting him on my table.
Oh my god, this whole scene with the blood drive is so good.
Yeah. It's so funny. And he takes blood from Spencer.
The blood drive being just to get blood to help Bobby.
Yeah, first of all, why did they need so much blood?
I mean, it's generally speaking, you can do a blood drive for any number of reasons, but like when something like this happens and somebody lost a lot of blood, they can an easy way to get a lot of blood, viable blood, is to just do a blood drive and then sort through it to find the people who have matching blood types, and there you go. And it also gives everybody in the department like an opportunity to be like, I helped, even if my blood type isn't a match, I did my part to like help if I could, kind of thing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So Dexter says, he's like, why do you think the cartel is targeting children? And Spencer says they're fucking evil animals. And Dexter says, I couldn't agree more. People who hurt kids. And then he pulls out the needle like roughly.
He's being so aggressive with the needle.
And if you ever I've mentioned before that I used to like do drugs and stuff. And if you pull out the needle before the tourniquet is off, it hurts a lot. Like it feels like a pressure is like exploding in your arm.
Oh god.
And so it's like he left the tourniquet on and just like pulled out the needle, and that's like like just an awful feeling.
And like this cat and mouse kind of thing where he's like, I hope you're better at your job than you are at like drawing blood.
Yeah. And
my favorite line.
Chalk that up to foreplay.
Chalk that one up to foreplay. I was like, that's
so good.
Fucking good. And so my wife she gives blood periodically. She does.
Okay.
She gives blood like once or twice, to like 2 or 3 times every 6 months or whatever. Like she goes and does it a lot.
Wow.
So she's like she is really familiar with like the process and everything. So Dexter is like, well, first after he takes Spencer's blood, that's when enters Officer Sanders, who basically says that, I want to give blood because I want to help, but I can't because a sexual partner contacted me and said they tested positive for HIV, but I don't want people to know. So it's like, but people ask questions, so like I needed to look like I gave blood. So Dexter steps in and is like, yeah, of course, I got you. And
great scene.
He pretends that he's taking Sanders' blood when he's taking his own. So he puts Sanders' name on the bag of blood or whatever and sends him on his way. Great moment. Enter Masuka, who's like, all right, it's your turn.
Oh my god.
And the moment Masuka walked in, my wife just goes, oh no. She's like, just the realization. And I was like, oh, he's going to have to give a second pint. Oh, this is going to be bad.
My god.
And it just made me think about it made me think about 2 scenes later in the show. There's the scene in season 4 where he's like super tired, like he's delirious because he has been sleeping well at the beginning.
Yes, I just saw that episode.
And he's trying to fucking kill someone while he's like literally sleep deprived. And then in season 6, when he accidentally takes in some of that nerve gas that Doomsday tries to release in the police station, and he's having like lingering effects, and it's like he's like in the middle of trying to take down Travis, he gets like lightheaded and like collapses or whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my god, we're on that train again. He's about to like
Interesting. Yeah.
So he gives 2 pints of blood, which is just comedy gold. I think it's like classic
Yeah.
Dexter, like dark comedy. Like, oh, I can see where this is going.
Right.
But yeah, sorry. That's just
Yep.
I love this whole scene, this whole blood drive dynamic. Great stuff.
Yeah. And then he does say his signature line. He says, "I'm about to crack a big case. Tonight could even be the night."
Yeah.
Was this the one that filled in your bingo square, or was it before?
No, I think he said it. He said it when he was stalking Levi Reed. I think
Okay.
actually, I think he said it in episode 1 when he's gonna take out Nurse Mary. I could be wrong, but I think he said tonight's the night.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it was after he like put up all the plastic in her house, and you just see him kind of like looking around at the kill room, and he said,
Mhm.
"Tonight's the night" or something,
Yeah.
like that. So,
Wow, that's cool. Dexter finds a fingerprint on the bag, which I assume it's
they don't really show much
Sketches.
after that. They just kind
Yeah.
of show him taking fingerprints from the bag. He's more
right.
just commenting on the fact that like no matter how hard you try, you're gonna leave traces of yourself,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they never really talk about what he pulled from the bag, or
Right.
which also could be significant. I don't know.
Okay. Then we didn't really talk about this when we were talking about the flashback, but with Brian, he tries like smothering Deb with a pillow. He says too noisy when she asks why he did it. He's like, too noisy. And then Harry tries to talk to him and he freaks out and he punches a window.
Let me just say, I know this is not their fault. I hate child actors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but like, what are you gonna do? Like, you need a child to do this part. Like, this scene.
What are you gonna do?
This scene was hard for me to. I was like, oh god, this kid's really shooting for the fences, trying to get an Oscar or something, and it was like maybe a little over.
It was cringe.
But
it was a little cringe.
It happened. It's not just. It's like anytime any child's on screen, it's like 80% chance you're gonna get this.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? But yeah, what a great scene, because then it made me think like, it's like, wait a minute, Brian knew Deb.
Brian already tried to kill Deb.
Yeah.
Once.
Oh my god, it's so crazy.
Also, little Easter egg that they threw in that was just kind of off the, just blink and you miss it comment from Doris as she sits down with the 2 boys for the first time and she talks to Brian. She says, "Do you like fire trucks?" And he says, "Yes, but he's the ice truck killer," which is just kind of like a little play
reversal.
on, a little reversal there.
That's cool. So we get a really good scene. I wish I had taken more notes on it, but Harry goes through Brian in present day. Harry goes through Brian's case files and the NHI files and kind of compares the two and notices that Brian has been in the crowd at all of these crime scenes, and he says, "Oh my god, he's stalking Dexter."
You know what's funny? The day before the episode aired, John sent me a screenshot of episode 2. And in the background, he was like, "I think this is Brian," and it's the guy
see him
wearing the orange hat. But it was kind of like blurry; you can't really see it for sure. And he was like, "I think this is Brian," and I was like, "Is it? I don't know." And then this happens, and you can totally see he's looking at the guy in the orange hat, and I was like, "Fuck, he was right."
Oh my god, that's amazing!
Totally called it.
That's super cool. Brian wins bingo and tells Barb that he's going to take her to Applebee's to celebrate.
She's like, "Ooh, don't mind if I do, Applebee's."
Right. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know. Obviously, Brian is Brian and he's like a serial killer, but I was like, that would be such a cool moment. Like, what if Brian just had, like, like Dexter in the just had like a friend, like Dexter in the time that he's not like killing people, he has like a wife and kids and all this stuff. And it's like, what if Brian just like, what if he just really like had this old person that he just like hung out with and took to Applebee's?
If they were gonna do a show about the ice truck killer, I would bet you anything that there is going to be a character like that where he has
to be,
this
right?
normal friendship, this one person he connects with that
Yeah.
like doesn't realize he's a killer. I mean, like that kind of has to be there. Like that's going
There
to be one of
has
those
to be.
things that makes it interesting and suspenseful. Also, I don't know if we mentioned, but Barb is that we realize now at this point that Barb
Yeah,
is
she's
the
the-
woman that was the caseworker who was responsible
Right.
for splitting them up after he tried to smother.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what you said earlier. Did you say that it's been rumored that there will be a Brian show, or is that just like a desire?
I think there was a lot of talk about this. Was actually back when they first announced Original Sin, when it wasn't even called Original Sin. They announced that. They announced New Blood season 2. They announced a Trinity prequel, and I think they just kind of offhandedly mentioned they're exploring other potential spinoffs for characters like the Ice Truck Killer. So I don't know if this is actually going to come to fruition. But honestly, after this, it seems like it would make a lot more sense for them to pursue this than Trinity, or maybe they're going to do both. I don't know. But it seems like they're already moving forward with the Trinity thing, so I don't fucking know.
Trinity thing is weird.
It's weird. It's weird, but it's also Clyde Phillips. So to be honest, like I'll watch it. I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
If anyone could like prove me wrong, it'd be him.
Yeah.
I think.
Sure. So yeah, he takes Barb and he takes her to his van, and she has this moment where she's like, "Is that your vehicle?" And
your chariot awaits.
Yeah, your chariot awaits. And he opens the back door, and she's like, "I want to sit up front." And he's like, "Well, life is full of wants and desires." Then he like knocks her out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good scene, I guess.
I love like the camera pulled way back, and you just see the two of them walking in this like behind this,
and
like,
you realize
huge
how
building.
far,
and
like how far it is away from the van,
and there's like nobody around, and they're just walking towards this really creepy looking van, and I was like,
yeah,
Barb, I think there's some alarm bells should be going off here.
Right. Yeah. Deb, so this doesn't get explored very much in this episode, but Deb gets a random call from the university, and they said they know about the incident but still want to enroll her. So
I think this is setting up her, like, instead of being forced to like join the force instead of going to college, she's going to make the decision. She is going to be the one that like chooses her path instead of being forced. That's good. Not much to say about that one, but I think that's where it's going.
So we see Dexter get the kill room ready, and then we go over to Spencer.
Which, by the way, I was not expecting that kill room to be in an arcade. Very cool.
Oh yeah, very cool.
Very
cool
good. Kill room.
Yep. Dexter leaves a blackmail note from someone. I mean, the note doesn't say Victor, but Spencer says, "Damn it, Victor," or whatever. And so basically in this note, he's saying, "I want $5,000 by 1 a.m. or I'm gonna tell the world that you, like, I'm gonna give out your secret. Like, you gave me the shirt. I'm gonna expose you. All this stuff."
That's an interesting theory I hadn't considered, which may poke a hole in my theory.
What?
The Victor thing, but Victor being the guy he handed the shirt to. I haven't considered that at all.
The note?
I hadn't considered that Victor is the guy he handed the shirt to.
I mean, who is Victor? Isn't it just some random name?
Is it?
I don't know.
It's part of my theory, but
I guess I don't know why it pokes a hole in your theory.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Okay, but yeah, Dexter leaves this note to get him to the arcade, basically. And then this was an interesting... I wanted to get your thoughts on this scene. Harry visits Bobby in the hospital, and he thinks Bobby is unconscious, and he admits all this stuff to Bobby. And he says that, like, Brian is the NHI killer, and that he's stalking Dexter, and if he brings Brian in, then Dexter will learn everything, and everybody else will learn everything. And he's like, I could be in deep shit for this. He's like, so I don't want to, like, make a move on the person I know to be the NHI killer, because it could ruin my entire life. And just like what a moment. Like this is everything. This is everything cards on the table.
Except for the part about Dexter being a serial killer.
Well, yeah, except for
Yeah.
Dexter being a serial killer. But like everything else that he's learned in the past couple episodes is on the table now. And he doesn't expect Bobby to be awake.
But he also doesn't freak
And
out when he realizes he is.
sure. I like obviously he trusts Bobby like implicitly. Like
Yeah.
he really trusts him.
I think this actually suggests that Bobby may know more than
Oh.
but I don't know if he's like on like he knows about Dexter's like
Dexter,
proclivities or anything, but like he
Sure.
certainly is, because like Harry's response when he realizes that, you know, when Bobby says save Dexter, his response is
Yeah.
thank you. I get the
Right.
message, like, oh my god, I love you, kind of, you know, it's not like, oh my
Right,
god, I
yeah.
can't forget everything you just heard me say. It's not that.
Right.
It's,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they're very close. Like Harry and Bobby are very, very close. And Bobby, I mean, he was there for Harry when he was like Bobby knew about Harry's affair with the CI,
Yeah.
and he had his back during that. So I think that's mostly fine, but Bobby says save Dexter. And like I like maybe I understand what this means, but is he specifically saying in this moment, is Bobby saying, I understand that Brian is probably going to try to kill Dexter or something like that, and you should save him? Is that what he's getting at?
if I had to guess, I would say he's basically saying if Dexter is in danger, do what you got to do to save Dexter. Like that should be
Okay.
the thing that drives you, not
Okay.
doing what's right, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
save Dexter first and foremost.
Got it. Okay.
That's what I got from it, anyways.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. And Harry runs out of the room. He's like, he's awake. He's awake. And so it seems like maybe he'll pull through. This seemed like the moment where Bobby was gonna die, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think he might pull through.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get the flashback where they are officially getting rid of Brian. Like they are asking for him to leave. They are splitting up the brothers. They
Harry
can't
says
handle
we
him.
can't handle this level of trauma.
Yeah, we can't handle this level of trauma. Little do they know that Dexter is like a bundle of trauma.
Yeah.
And as Brian is in the car and leaving, the camera pans to Doris, and then it pans back to Brian.
Yeah.
And he is like glaring at her.
I
And I'm
think
like,
I think your theory here is correct.
Does Brian kill Doris? Like
We've never
I
been
think
told one way or the other how Doris died.
right.
We just know that she died about a year before this season started, which is a year
Right.
before Brian shows back up on the scene.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of wiggle room here for them to kind of do whatever they want. So yeah, it seems like he's targeting people involved. We haven't found out how the other two victims are tied to Brian, the guy,
Sure.
the other two NHI victims, but I would imagine
Right.
they're related somehow.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I wouldn't be
Because
surprised if maybe Doris was literally his first stop, like his first target. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, and you and I have talked before about like did Brian actually kill Harry?
I mean, I think that's kind of like the role he's being set up. Like he's technically responsible for like literally destroying Dexter's entire immediate family.
Yeah.
And
Because Brian is trying to make it, I would imagine. He is trying to make it so that
he's the only family Dexter.
he's the only family Dexter has left.
Yeah.
Because he tries to kill Deb in the first season. That's his whole MO.
Yeah. Deb being the last one that he needs to take out to get his brother to himself.
Right.
And we've also saw in the first season he killed Dexter's biological father in a very kind of like subtle way, like he injected him with something and poisoned him or whatever.
Right.
So I could imagine maybe he does kind of the same thing here to Doris, and I would imagine Harry's probably going to find out about this at some point.
Ooh, you think Harry knew? Yeah.
I mean, I think he's going to find out. I mean, I don't think he knows in the present day now, but I would imagine this is all kind of building to Harry and Brian having a confrontation in maybe
Yeah.
in the finale. And that might be where he realizes that Brian was responsible for his wife's death. Maybe.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So then this part of the notes that I have here is the kill, because I thought Patrick Dempsey was gonna die.
I was like, he's doing it again. They're going to kill off the villain in the second to last episode, but they didn't.
Yep. Yep. They switched it up, and so it's gonna be interesting to see where they go with this. Spencer shows up at the arcade. Dexter, this was a fantastic scene.
One of
Dexter
the best takedowns.
Yeah, Dexter puts the M99 through the little fatty spot between your thumb and forefinger.
Yeah.
And I like, oh man, it was so good. You could see the needle like poking through. One time I was using do you know what a palm nailer is?
No, that sounds awful.
It's like a nail gun, except it fits in your palm. It looks like a Pokeball. And
Okay.
there's like you set one singular nail into it. You set one nail into it, and then you push it against something, and the little Pokeball goes dot 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 dot, and it like pushes the nail into the wood.
Huh.
It's like it's hooked up to like a compressor and all that.
Right.
But one time I reached my hand back to grab the palm nailer, and I forgot that there was a nail in it, and it sent a nail directly through that exact same spot, like the fat between your thumb and forefinger, and I got a nail all the way through my hand. You can still see the scar of it, but
Holy shit!
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh my god.
yeah, because it was like sitting on the ground and the nail was pointed up, and I wasn't looking, and I reached back to grab it, and I literally set and it's pressure sensitive.
Oh no!
And so when I set my hand on top of it, the whole thing went off, and it was like dot dot dot, and it just like shot the nail through my hand like that. So
Holy fuck.
that's what
So
that's
this was
what
especially traumatizing for you.
Yeah, when I saw
My
when
god.
when I saw him put the M99 through his hand, I was like, "Oh, I know how that feels."
Oof.
So yeah, he gets the needle. It's so cool because we see the end of the needle going through the hand, and Dexter is now just like fighting the hand, trying to get it into his neck.
While
And
also
finally-
being like wild, like he's like delirious from having
Yeah, he's lost
so much
2
blood.
pints of blood. Yeah. And so he like finally, it was very like Assassin's Creed. He like finally gets the hand into his neck, and then he takes his other hand and just shoves down on the plunger.
Yeah.
And like puts the M99 in.
Seriously great takedown. Like maybe one of my
What a great takedown.
favorite
So good.
takedown. A little rough around the edges as far as like execution goes, but you know,
So
on
good.
Dexter's part, but such an exciting takedown. Like the whole moment combined with like the surroundings, like being in that really colorful, bright neon arcade.
Yes.
It was just a really cool like little set piece.
That has been is such a random question, but that has been, I mean, look at the background behind us on StreamYard here. That has been like the colors of the show so
Yeah.
far. Do you think there's like a reason for that? Because the main show is so like earth tone and gritty. Like
I don't know. You think the original? I mean, I always thought the original show was very vibrant because it was Miami.
It was vibrant because of Miami, but I think just like in general, like if Dexter was doing a kill room, it wasn't like this neon thing.
Especially
and so far,
especially after Clyde Phillips left, it started to go a little darker in
and
terms,
darker.
I think they're just getting back to a point where they're like embracing kind of like a little. They're embracing a bit more of a like an artistic flourish to it a little bit. Like there's like this like kind of like surreal element to the whole thing. Like
Sure.
when he's in Nurse Mary's house, like why the fuck is her house pink? Doesn't make any sense,
Right.
but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So who gives a shit? Yeah.
That's true.
And
That's true.
it's like, why is her house pink? It's like, oh, I don't know. In the flashback in the original show is pink,
right.
so let's just keep it pink. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
like.
let's just go
Who
with it.
cares? It's cool,
Yeah,
and
it
I
is.
like that. I love that about it. I think
It
the
is
show
cool.
works because there's a little bit of like a fantastical element to the whole thing where it feels just unrealistic enough that it's like it feels okay to kind of be on board with what's happening. You know what I mean?
And it kind of sets the kill room apart from everything else.
Yeah.
Like when it's that vibrant, and I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love the colors. I have this light that's going on in my room almost all the time.
Yeah.
And so I love like weird neon colors and stuff.
I love it when shows or movies like have kind of like a what you would call like a color, like they have a distinct color palette that you recognize. Like I think New Blood had it as well, but maybe to a lesser extent. Like
it was very blue.
It was very blue. It had this like everything felt like cold and just
gray.
I don't know, gray and I think it was used to great effect. I think they're doing a similar thing here, but on the opposite end of the spectrum. So.
Yeah, we just earlier today, actually, right before this podcast, we recorded our episode for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah.
And we watched the movie for that, and it was like, oh, this is like a very different like color shift from the rest of the movies. It's all very like toned down and darker and whatnot.
It's where shit starts to get real dark.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It was already getting kind of dark, but like that's where shit really hits the fan.
It really hits the fan. So let's, even though this wasn't like the kill, let's talk about the kill room, because like for all intents and purposes, like this was almost like he's got Patrick Dempsey on his table. I love when he wakes up and Dexter is playing the arcade game.
Classic Dexter right there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's like just doing something in the room that's like other than focusing on the kill. And I love that if you go back to episode 3 or 4, Nikki had talked to Dexter about like, he's like, there's this game at the arcade that I have the high score on. He's like, you should go there and try to beat my high score sometime.
Yep.
And Dexter tells Spencer that he's like, yeah, I'm just trying to beat Nikki's high score. I'm going to put his initials in so people think it's him or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, what a great just little addition. Like it's this whole scene is so good. I feel like this is Dexter in his final form. Like
I'm usually so disappointed when kill scenes don't work out, like they don't end up resulting in a kill. But this is great scene.
Oh my god!
Like even if like Spencer ends up being killed later in a less traditional manner, like outside of a kill room, I feel like we still got the kill room scene, and it was glorious. I hope he does eventually end up back on the table, but this is glorious. I think this was a fantastic scene. This is the scene where it started to change everything about what I think is going to happen. But
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but like his interactions here, I mean, there's so many things like which it's hard to talk about here.
Well, this was like for me watching Patrick Gibson do this, I was like, this is Michael C. Hall reincarnated, or like not reincarnated, but like
the man's still with us.
Yeah, the Michael C. Hall energy was so strong here. There was so many like where he puts his finger on the chest or on the forehead or whatever, and he's like dot 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 dot. Like there was just so much of that energy. Ooh,
the back and forth is so good, and when he's like running down the list of like things that he's guilty of and stuff, and be like, let's not forget about Bobby. And he's like, I like Bobby, or because I like him. And then Spencer's like, I like him too. And I was like,
what a great like back and forth.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
I like him too. Oh God, it was.
I think this is what I wanted to see when I was like Patrick Dempsey on a kill table. This is like what I was like this is the stuff. This is the
I
I don't know what, but this is what I wanted.
I wish we had a way, because Amazon won't let us do this, but I wish there was a way to like watch this scene together and talk about it
Mhm.
like line by line,
Yeah.
because there was so much that I didn't even write down. Like you said, you've watched it twice, so you probably noticed more things than I did, but it was just like all I could say was, this is amazing. Like, this is everything that I've wanted. Like, Patrick Gibson, he's got the apron, he's got the full kill room set up, he's got the attitude.
He's even got the roll with the knives in it, which is like
Yes,
the
he's
first time
got
we've
the.
seen that.
Yeah, when the fuck did he get that?
He may have actually had it in the Levi Reed kill scene, but they didn't really
Did
like
he?
focus on it. Or maybe he just got the knife out of a chopping block. I can't remember. But yeah, this
Yeah.
is definitely the first time we see it in full view, where he has
He's got the.
got
I
the
was
roll
like,
out.
oh my god.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was so incredibly excited. Like, literally after we finish this, I'm gonna go back and at least just watch the kill scene or
And
the kill room scene.
and this is like, this had me like, 'cause at first, and this is very intentional. At first, I was like, "What the fuck is he doing?" And you've written that in your notes here as well, I see. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "Did this motherfucker just make the biggest amateur hour mistake
Right.
ever?" Like,
Yeah.
by accidentally cutting the plastic and then walking out of the room to give him time to think about what he's done.
Yeah.
And at first I was like freaking out, and then I was kind of like, for a second I was like mad. I was like, he would never do that. I was like, I don't usually
Right.
get like this, but he would never
Right.
fucking do that.
Right.
And then of course it hit
He's
me. I
got
was
a
like,
reason.
he's doing this so he could follow him to
Right.
Nikki. But before that, obviously important, he tortures him. He cuts off his
Yes.
finger. And I
So-
love it when he says, he's like, did you, there's that hesitation cut. You hesitated when you killed, or when you cut off Nikki's finger. When I do it, I'm not going to hesitate. And I was like, that was pretty fucking good.
He says, want to see how Nikki and Jimmy felt? I guarantee you no hesitation marks when I do it. And it's like, oh, that's so.
And then he does it.
It's so good. And then he does it. He just chop.
And he does it.
And then he says, "Did your son scream like that?" And earlier, prior to that, so Patrick, so I don't know what your theory is, but he basically admits to it here. He says, like, she betrayed me. He's talking about his wife, and he kind of lays out that whole situation. And so it confirms what you were saying about how he's trying to be the hero that like brings back the kid. He's like, she betrayed me this whole time, and that it was like motivated by this relationship with his wife. I wish I had written down more of that part of the conversation, but it seems like he's kind of admitted to it.
Seems like it. Do you want me to run through the evidence?
Well, let's do it in the final thoughts. We're almost through here.
Yeah.
So then he shoves the blade right down by his head, just sticks it in the table, and Michael C. Hall says, "That moment was the most serious case of serial killer blue balls I've ever had." And at the time, I didn't know what he was talking about, and then it pans down to like his arm being open and like able to move, because like earlier in the scene, he like cuts up the plastic
to pull his
and I was
hand
like,
out so he can cut off his finger. Yeah.
That's right. That's what it was. And I was like, oh no, because I'm like, is he letting him go? But yeah, it was to cut off his finger. And then I love this line. I love this line. He says, "I've learned firsthand," this is after he cuts off his finger. He says, "I've learned firsthand that you can lose 2 pints of blood and still function. But 3, that's a little iffy, mortally speaking."
Yeah, so good.
I was like, what a diabolical line. Like, that was so good. It made me, like, feel things. I was like,
Right.
ooh. And so then, of course, he's like, "I'm going to let you think about what you've done, and I'll be back, and you can tell me if you want to
where
talk
Nikki
some
is,
more."
basically.
Yeah. So then he leaves, And then I wrote here, what the fuck is he doing? Don't leave, in all caps.
Yeah, that's where I was. That's where my wife was. Like everybody, I think everybody was in that moment. But this
Like,
is like
what the
peak.
fuck?
This is kind of what I talk about, where I feel like there was a clear difference between like the writing in the first 4 seasons when Clyde Phillips was involved and in New Blood compared to like some of the later seasons. There's a few moments where there's like some genuinely brilliant moments in those seasons, obviously, but like
Right.
this is like this feels like classic like Clyde Phillips, Scott Reynolds influence here. Or
Right.
I mean, and credit to all the other writers involved, because a lot of people come together to make the show, obviously, but they're kind of like the ringleaders of the whole thing. This is like classic Dexter, like a very calculated move, something that like makes everybody go, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?" And then later you're like, "Oh my god, that's so fucking smart."
Right. Yeah.
It's like I just feel like so much of that was kind of like either absent or kind of lazily handled in some of the later seasons, which I think is where kind of how everybody feels. But like this was like so well done. I think everybody who watched this was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then when they realized that it's just a plot and he's doing this very intentionally, it was like, "Oh, that's fucking awesome."
So, anyways, to race through to the end of the episode so we can talk about your theory. We get Brian's kill. He's got Barb tied up on a rooftop, which is like, how are people not hearing this? Like,
I mean, it might be, but think of it this way: you're walking down the street in downtown Miami at like what, midnight, 1 a.m.
Yeah,
and you hear a chainsaw on a roof. Like,
but someone's screaming also.
I guess that's probably. I mean, here's the thing: like, somebody calls that in, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he's probably gone.
He's probably long gone by the time anybody actually has the time to call it in. And I mean, you even hear Dexter comment on like what the average response time is in Miami in 1991. It's like 7 minutes or something like that. She's long dead after that, and he's just out of there
in the wind.
But also, in the grand scheme of things, not super.
It's
important.
fantasy.
He cuts her up into little pieces, and it's fucked up.
Yeah,
a lot of chainsaws.
We see her chained up, and then all of a sudden he like reaches over and the chainsaw comes into frame, and it's like, oh my god, he's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was absolutely diabolical, and like the first time I was like, God, he's such a good villain.
Yeah, he's such a good villain.
Like I could be convinced to watch a spin-off about this character because he's crazy. Sure. And I think they did such a good job with the casting again. So I hope we see more of him. I'm sure we'll see more of him in the next episode too. But like, man, this was a hell of a moment.
It was fantastic. It was everything that I wanted from. Honestly, so far this season has been everything I've wanted. Like, just hands down. It's been everything I wanted.
Honestly, I just like I never would have like I was hoping it would be. I was hoping it would be sufficient. Like it would be enough for fans to be like, that was fun. Like that was kind of what I was like preparing myself. Best case scenario, people were going to be like, it was okay.
Yeah.
People seem to be loving this.
Yes.
I'm loving this. I want more of this.
Which is so surprising, because how often do you get something this well handled? Kind of going into our final thoughts.
Prequels just as a concept are hard to execute on.
Yeah.
There's more bad prequels than good prequels, I would say. Like the two that kind of come to mind, strange enough, are both Westerns. Red Dead Redemption 2 as a prequel is an incredible prequel.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 1 and the prequel series for Yellowstone are better than the main series of Yellowstone. If
I've heard people say that. Yeah.
Like they've done several separate prequel series for Yellowstone, and they're all fucking amazing. Like, I mean, I like Yellowstone, the base series, but like it has been overshadowed by its prequel series.
Wow.
And outside of that, I think of like Star Wars, and I'm like, we all know how that went.
Yep. Right.
And I'm sure there's tons of other examples to think of, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind. So like when I heard they were doing a prequel here, the first thing everybody said was, is this necessary? Do they need to do this? Which is, of course, the first reaction most people have about any prequel. And of course the answer is no, but like if you can justify it, if you can make it worth your while, it's fine. It's great. And I think they've done that here and then some. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. I've been overjoyed by this series. It has been what's the word? Just like a bonus to my life. Like it has been something that I look forward to every week, and I have just been like,
And
you
now
know what I mean?
prepare for the final episode to be the lowest rated episode of the season, because that's the way it always fucking goes.
Is it?
Oh, season 8 finale,
Well, yeah,
lowest rated
but that
episode
was
of the
just a
entire
bad
series.
finale.
Yeah, see, and episode 10 of New Blood, lowest rated episode of that series.
Yeah,
About on par with the season 8 finale. I'm just basing this on like IMDb scores.
sure.
Um,
Okay.
and we've talked
Well,
till blue in the face about the finale of New Blood. I think is
yeah,
underrated. But
yeah,
if the pattern holds,
yeah.
but then again, if this is not the end of this original sin as a series, then
Right.
maybe it'll be fine.
I think I don't know. I just don't see how this could end badly. And maybe I would have said the same thing about season 8. Like I just don't know what I would have said about it. Like
I think the writing was on the wall for season 8, like
yeah,
pretty early. You know what I mean? Like
sure,
5
yeah.
or 6 episodes into season 8, and I was like,
Yeah,
I don't know if they're gonna be able to do this well.
right.
So
I don't know. I think it's a slam dunk. Even if they
I
do
do
the
too,
most
yeah.
even if they do the most basic thing and are just like, yeah, like Dexter follows him to the hideout. He finds out that he does have Nikki. Dexter somehow saves Nikki and kills Patrick Dempsey, and that's kind of the end of the season. I think that's still a slam dunk.
It'll
I
be
think,
safe. It'll be
yeah,
safe, but it'll
yeah,
probably still be good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we've been in our final thoughts for a while. My notes here are like, holy shit, what an episode, which we've already covered.
Yep.
And then Brian predictions and Dexter / Spencer predictions. So you've alluded to this theory all episode now.
I'm
Um,
so sorry.
no, you're good, but you've mentioned that you don't want to like give it away. So what are your bullet points that are like
Okay.
these are the things
Yeah.
that I
So
noticed?
I also want to be very clear here that like, while I feel pretty confident in this theory, I admit that it's like it sounds insane, and it sounds like they would be crazy to do it. But and even if I'm wrong, I think they are alluding to, or they're preparing us for something else. And also, one thing I'm not going to mention here, because I didn't put it in my my list of evidence on the article, but there was an interview with Molly Brown after the reveal, after we finally found out that Spencer was the kidnapper, where in an interview she said, "Guys, y'all don't even know the half of it." Like she
Yeah.
alluded to, like that's not even the biggest, craziest thing.
Yeah.
So there's already kind of this like expectation that like something's coming. Like this is
Right.
not as cut and dry as it seems. But again, I'm not gonna like outright say it. If you want to talk about it after we stop recording, I'll happily like lay it out for you. But I will tell you
Sure.
what I have noticed and what kind of all the stuff that I think contributes to this theory.
Yeah.
First one being the kidnapper, when we at the beginning of episode 9, when we see him take off his mask and talk to Nikki, he's very detached. He's not very fatherly.
Sure.
He just pulls it off, and he just very blank slate to his face says, "You didn't do anything wrong. This will all be over very soon."
Yeah.
And that's all he gives him. And
Right.
and you would think that if this was actually like his father, even if he's like a crazy person, there would be something between them,
Yeah.
right? There would be some kind of like something more than deadpan to this
Okay.
kid. So I thought that was pretty strange. Exhibit B, and this is still pretty broad here. This could mean any number of things, but like Spencer has been very dedicated to staying in tight control of the Miami Metro investigation. Like he refuses to like give up his power or like to like recuse himself from the investigation. He wants to be directly in the middle of it so he can influence the investigation, which could mean obviously at the most base level, like he is guilty and he wants to keep them
Right.
off of his trail. Obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So is he protecting himself or does he have ulterior motives here? I don't know. Exhibit C, the wound on his arm, which they keep calling attention to. They even did it in this episode 9. After they find the speck of blood on the box and the hesitation cut and all this stuff, he is very not concerned at all with trying to conceal this wound,
Yeah.
from any of his colleagues. He's just like, even in the after the raid at the cartel house, he's just, you can see it, huge bandage on his arm. He's not
Right.
concerned with people noticing it. Which, if that had happened in the course of like kidnapping a child, you might not want to call attention to it.
Sure. Okay.
Again, could mean any number of things, very minor.
Okay.
This next one is where I started to really kind of like raise an eyebrow. Is they
Okay.
keep calling attention to and using language specifically where Dexter says he's a really good actor. Constantly saying he's like, when he's in the bullpen and he's like reacting to what's happening to his son, or when he's talking to him one-on-one. They even did the thing in this episode where he's like, he feels his heart, and his heart's just like super steady, which would indicate honesty in, if in most cases, right?
Sure.
So people who, if you're guilty of something, people tend to naturally, like, their heartbeat raises. Obviously, if you're a psychopath, that may not be the case, but like, think back to Nurse Mary when he had her on the table. They did that the first time, and it was like her heart was beating a mile a minute.
Yeah.
Spencer doesn't seem to be scared or nervous about anything, whatever.
Sure.
But they keep calling attention to it. Even when he was on the table, he says, quote unquote, "How do you, who is, as you yourself said, a fucking evil animal, give such a convincing, innocent performance?"
Yeah.
Um,
That was also really reminiscent of the used car salesman scene.
Yeah,
I felt
which
like
is-
he's like, "You're such a good liar. Like, how do you
Yeah.
do that?" Like, I love that.
absolutely. But the more interesting thing about this, though, and this ties into the next one I have here, which is that Spencer is on the table. Spencer is adamantly denying everything.
Mhm.
He says, "I'm not acting. I have never killed a child. I'm not a serial killer, which you clearly think that I am."
Mhm.
And then the most interesting thing to me was he says, "You've got the wrong guy," which I thought was a really interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like when he realizes, because like when he first wakes up, he's like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, he's looking around like,
Yeah.
"Why am I strapped to a table? What's happening?"
Yeah.
And then when he realizes that Dexter is there to like kill him, he just kind of like very calmly says, "You've got the wrong guy."
Yeah.
Which I thought was just a very, like, I've heard a lot of people on the table say
Yeah.
various things that like allude to like, I'm not guilty, but the way
Right.
he said this just very much struck me as like he was almost like he was being truthful. He's like,
Interesting.
"You got the wrong guy," and Dexter is very much like, "No, I don't. You're the
Yeah.
right guy," which made me think about like, are you sure you got the right guy? I haven't really seen you verify much of anything. You saw the
Yeah.
one thing that looked very, very, very suspicious, and then you just kind of like went for it. You put the blinders on.
Okay.
The next thing is, again, who is Victor? It was a very calculated thing. Like, we've never heard him say the word Victor before. I had not thought about the possibility that Victor could be the person he handed the jersey to, but that is a good point, and that could be the first
Okay.
hole in my theory. So
Okay.
good. But at this point, we've never heard the name Victor before, and it was very intentionally placed, right? He didn't have to say that. So like,
Does
they
he
put
does
that
he
in there.
say does he say Victor on the kill table?
No,
Does he say the word Victor?
no, it's
Oh, okay.
just then when he picks up the thing and he looks, he goes, "Fucking Victor."
Mhm.
And I even like put on subtitles and like I was like, did I mishear him? Did he say something else? And like, nope,
Oh, I
fucking
see.
Victor.
I see where you're getting
So
at.
like,
Okay.
so he's
Yeah.
alluding to somebody else knows what's going on and is blackmailing him.
That
And it
could
could be the junkie.
Yeah, that and you're right. The opposite way. I think I assumed that Victor was the junkie that he handed the thing to that was blackmailing him.
They just never made a point of like telling us that guy's name.
Sure.
So
yeah.
it was weird to hear them suddenly drop a name like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
That's
just
fair.
like this line just felt very intentionally placed, but also very easily to kind of like dismiss as like not very important.
Sure.
And then lastly, just kind of generally speaking, Dexter's like overall inexperience. Like, the whole point of the show is Dexter is so early in his days of killing that he's just not very experienced. He's very cocky. He's very overzealous when it comes to this, and he's confident, but he is kind of like exhibiting signs of like not wanting to follow the code to a T.
Yeah.
being annoyed by how much Harry is insisting that he, be more careful or whatever. And he's
Okay.
younger, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but like in that scene on the kill table, it felt to me like was Spencer was telling him, I think you've made a mistake here. And Dexter
Mm.
being like, digging his heels in and be like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I didn't write about this. This is kind of a totally separate thing, but like he made a point to cut off his finger.
Hmm.
And then when he leaves, he takes his finger with him,
Yeah.
which I think is going to play a part.
Sure. Yeah, because the camera focused on it for sure.
Right. So that's kind of where it leaves off, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the crux of my theory. And again, very well could be wrong. But knowing that there's probably something unexpected coming, because that's kind of what it's been alluded to. It's like there's a twist coming of some kind. I feel like the direction this whole season is heading is towards driving home the point that
Yeah.
you
I
have
think
to
you're
follow the
right.
code or you're potentially going to make a huge fucking mistake.
Yeah.
And I can be more specific with you after we start recording if you want.
Yeah, I was going to say,
you want.
It'll be interesting to talk after we stop recording, because I'm not sure. Like, I'm with you as far as like the theme of the season being like you have to follow the code.
Yeah.
And I would love for this to be like a huge mistake and have it be like a big fuck up on Dexter's part. But I just don't know how you get around like both times
Right.
that he's removed the mask. I don't know how you get around that. So I'm interested.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, yeah, cool. I love talking about these theories. I love like what if this, what if that. I live for that stuff even in our usual podcast when we're talking about books and stuff. We love talking about theories. So I'm super excited to see where this goes, and I'm super
Me too. I think at the end of the day that's all that matters, is we're both very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I love the theorizing. I love feeling like anything could happen. I love feeling like I'm confident in something, but also knowing full well that I could be totally wrong.
Sure.
So like that's I can't wait. I cannot wait for Friday. Holy fuck.
Oh my god.
Well,
it's Valentine's gonna be such a good day. Is Friday Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh my god.
My wife and I are going to we're going out to dinner. We don't give a shit about Valentine's Day, but we're gonna go out to dinner anyways, and then we're gonna come back and watch Dexter. That is our Valentine's Day.
Oh man, that's so great. I love that so much. Yeah, what a great series to be able to experience again. You know what I mean? Just like being able to experience like new Dexter. That is such a huge blessing. Like,
it
oh my
genuinely
god,
feels like, because I love the whole series. I don't usually like to kind of like show favoritism. I mean, I acknowledge that the first 4 seasons are brilliant.
Sure.
But I hate to say it like this, but yeah, this does feel very much like classic Dexter.
Yeah.
Like first 4 seasons all the way.
It does. Yeah.
And I loved New Blood, but like I didn't realize how much I missed this style of Dexter. You know what I mean? Like I'm super excited for Resurrection. I loved New Blood.
Yeah.
But this is definitely like so nostalgic.
Yeah.
While also being like super exciting in some unexpected ways. So
yeah. Have you done like a main series rewatch recently?
I'm always doing a main series.
Okay,
rewatch.
yeah.
I mean, not always, but like, it's one of those shows that like I usually like I finish it and then like I wait a couple months and then I end up starting it over and
put it on in the background.
I'm not like
or
binging
something.
it, but I'm putting it on in the background, or it's my comfort show. So
yeah.
At this point, I've probably watched the whole series 9 or 10 times, maybe more. But like,
sure,
sometimes I'm paying more attention than others.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that's one thing with, doing this. I'm doing like a very intentional rewatch where I'm like paying attention to each episode. And
I finished my last rewatch like 2 days before Original Sin started. And that was a like I was casually rewatching it, and then I was like, I'm gonna get the pace and pay attention and just like actually like make sure I finish it right before Original Sin starts.
That's awesome because yeah, I'm like I said earlier, I'm like maybe halfway through season 4, and
So good.
I'm just like, oh, like I love this show. Like every single episode cements the idea in my head that it's like one of my literally like top 2 favorite shows of all time.
What would be the first? Just out of curiosity. Like
So I feel like both fight for number 1, and they're such completely different shows. It's either Dexter or it's Scrubs.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Scrubs. Okay, yeah. We've talked about
Scrubs
that
is
before.
like I love Scrubs so much.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, mine is literally Dexter and Buffy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch Buffy. I'm gonna have to
I just got to prepare. If you're gonna watch Buffy, I think it's great. I think it's one of the, it stands the test of time. It's amazing, but you also got to go into it remembering it was a WB show, just through and through. You just got to be okay with that.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I actually surprisingly I surprise people when I tell them my number 1 guilty pleasure thing ever is the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, okay.
And that was a CW show, and so I feel like I'm very primed for like a Buffy type show.
I also got really into Smallville, which is super cheesy, but I really liked it a lot. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but like also if you watch Buffy and end up liking it, keep going. Watch Angel as well, because the spinoff of Buffy is also phenomenal. And the last season of Angel is probably, in my opinion, the best season of all of the Buffyverse stuff. Period.
Nice.
Little pro tip.
Have you ever watched Scrubs all the way through?
Not all the way, not like from start to finish. I've seen a lot of it, but like probably jumping around.
I would recommend it. There are some episodes that are kind of hidden throughout certain seasons that will literally like make you cry. Like will literally like just like tear your heart out.
What is it even on anymore, like streaming wise?
I don't know. I have it all on DVD because on streaming they removed a lot of the old music because
licensing?
Licensing and stuff. So I watched it on DVD, but I'm sure it's on like I think Hulu, I think is where it's at now. I think it's Hulu.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know we went well beyond your time that you wanted to be
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I appreciate you being such a
My wife
trooper.
also knew it was going to happen. We're starting at 7. I'll be done by 10 and I'll be in bed. I'll be good to go. She's like, I
doubt it. In our last episode that we did, she like popped in for a second. She like opened the door and you were like, I'll be out in a second.
And that meant 45 minutes later.
Yeah. I kept that in the episode. I thought it was funny. I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for hanging out. Yeah. Is the dog?
Puppy?
Oh, there you are. Oh, you're okay.
I told you I was gonna introduce you to. I could have introduced you to my dog. I'll do that next. Remind me next time. She wasn't in bed before we started, so I'll do that next time. Aww.
Yeah, next time we'll have Dexter Unwrapped here, I believe. As long as they go pick up their webcam, and that'll be a lot of fun because I think it'll be cool to get a perspective from them because I think this is their first time going through the series. Like they've watched. They've watched the main series, and then they did New Blood, and now they're doing Original Sin, all for the first time.
I'll tell you this: I've been obviously been very active of talking about it again on social media and stuff, and I've had several people reach out to me, and it's like, okay, Nick, you've twisted my arm. I'm watching this show for the first time, and I'm like, cool. I want constant updates, and they've been like tweeting at me and stuff, and being like, I'm so and so this far. I'm fucking loving this show. And then somebody very specifically last week was like, dude, I have to ask, is there a bad episode of this show? And I was like, yes, there are bad episodes.
There are,
And I was like, in fact, there are a couple seasons that I think most people would tell you are bad. You just haven't reached them yet. So just prepare yourself.
It's been so much fun, like messaging you with little updates as I'm going through my rewatch, like, oh, remember this scene, and
that's what I
you recently got off of Twitter.
I did,
and
yes.
I felt more comfortable sending you like a million messages on Twitter than I do directly to your cell phone. And so I've been like, I'm like, I hope that it's not like 1 a.m. and his cell phone is just going off. Like...
No. My phone goes into do not disturb mode after like 11 p.m. So I won't see him until the morning.
Okay, great. I'm so glad because I was like, I hope I'm not like waking him up in the middle.
No. Fire away. Yeah, I'll either be awake or I'll be asleep, and I won't see him until the morning.
Okay, perfect. That's perfect. All right, well, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And everybody else, we are going to be like Dexter, and we're going to wrap it up there. Be sure to check out the Dexter Daily and the 4-Player Podcast if you like hearing about video games and stuff. Just use those links below down in the description, and you can see all of... Nick's things that he works on and stuff. You'll also find links to our socials and our Patreon down there, where you can reach out and chat with us or support us on Patreon and watch these episodes live as we record them. You can participate in the chat and hang out with us. It's a great time. You can also comment down below here on YouTube to join in on the discussion. I personally read all of the comments and try to respond to all of them. And I would love to know, at this point in the game, when we're 1 episode away from the finale, I would love to know specifically your guys' theories, and I would love to know just what you think about Original Sin compared to the main show. I would love to get some of those answers before we get the final episode, and then we can bring your comments up on screen, and we can kind of answer whatever questions you have if you guys are so inclined. So that'd be super fun. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the final episode of Dexter Original Sin.
Hell
Bye,
yeah.
everybody.